Welcome, everybody, one and all, to Plat VALORANT, episode 36.
Nice.
I had to check my notes. I thought it was 36, but it seemed there's a lot. 36 appears in nature a lot as a number. I think so.
I think you're making that.
Because it's divisible by 12 and 6 and 3 and 2.
Well, there's like a reasoning behind 360 degrees in a circle.
And 9.
Right?
Yes.
Like there's like a reason in nature.
It's very divisible by a lot of different numbers.
Yeah,
it's pretty
like
cool.
a unit circle.
All I'm thinking about is if only the listeners could have heard Bren's first intro, the one that got cut. They're never going to hear it.
You want to hear it again?
Okay.
Oh, welcome to Plat VALORANT episode 36. It went something like that.
It was close.
I like it.
There wasn't quite as much, dare I say,
visceralness.
It was a bit more primal, a bit more orgasmic.
Oh, okay. All right.
The viewers are never going to, the listeners, well, also viewers, they're never going to hear that one.
Yeah.
That intro's lost.
Thankfully. Let's get this show on the road, because I got to go.
Well,
okay.
bye.
This
fucking
guy. $1 million meetings.
But in like an hour or two, I gotta leave. So we gotta get this roll. We gotta get the show going. Connor, how are you? I don't know why I keep calling you Connor recently.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, Brennon.
Yeah, it's like first name basis now.
Well, my pipes are gonna get fixed finally. This on Friday after multiple plumbers. Dealing with that, I have become a master of unclogging shit from my own house. By the way, I've become a master. Every day, like the water levels start rising, I hear the gurgling because it's always preceded by toilets bubble. Like they're all like hidden like a fat bong rip, and they're all like, and so then I'm like, okay, the house is about to fill with shit, so I have to go outside, put on my heavy duty gloves. I have like this little valve on a garden hose, and I have to go and I have to plumb the depths, and I'm out in my front yard. There's water coming up like a little shit water, and then I have to turn on the hose and like it fills and then it blows out the obstruction for a bit, and then I have to take it out, and then because it's this long length of garden hose, it's like it's flailing, it's hitting me, I'm getting covered in shit and piss, and I'm like, oh, this is good. This is real good. I love it. It's epic. So my backup career, if everything goes poorly, if everyone stops caring about me, plumber. Gonna become a plumber. It's gonna be my backup.
I was once the shit man.
Yes.
When we went on our RV trip, it was my job.
Because you couldn't cook, you couldn't clean, you couldn't drive, and we took you on a road trip.
So
you sound like a baby.
But I was in charge of the waste disposal in the. That was my job.
Yeah,
I did it with pride.
Although you never quite got the thrill of handling a shit cobra, like it sounds like Avast is.
It's real fun. It's real fun because it's such a lengthy amount of garden hose that you simply can't control it as it comes out of the pipe, and so it is going to whack you and hit you when it's covered. Couldn't
you turn the water off before you pulled it out?
That's the problem. I do turn the water off, but it's because it's like you have to bring it up and it's coming at an angle, and because there's so much of it, like when it finally plops on out, it's kind of just like breaking the seal, and then it just like flings back at you. So that's okay.
That is
whatever.
As much as I'd love to hear more about your shit antics, I'm gonna get started by talking about patch 2.05 instead, which was the latest patch. It was a small one. There wasn't really much in the works. Yeah, it was mainly the social changes that they had promised. So they've increased their methods of detecting AFK players. Presumably there's a better system in place now. Better behavior penalties, I suppose, for people who act up in the chat. And chat ban players are supposed to be prohibited from playing ranked. Thank God. The amount of times I solo queue a lot.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
I think 50% of the games I had somebody trying to invite me to their party because their friend was chat banned. And when I say, no, I don't want to join your friend's party, the game is done. We have lost. Because them and their friends, the entire time, his friend who can talk is then one step away from getting chat banned for the actions in that same game. Because it's just done. It's finished.
Then they're always upsetting you.
Yeah, it's my fault that I don't want to join the party.
Have you ever chosen to join the party?
No.
Don't associate with miscreants.
And do you know why? Do you know why? Because of that story you told me.
Oh, you did it?
I've done it. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what specific story I told you,
Wow,
but
you really wanted to win that game, huh?
Well,
Was that a rank up game?
at the beginning, I thought this was like early on in Valorant, I think, when I had first ever got requested to join a party. And I actually like being in a party with people because I can use voice activation. Whereas if you're not in a party with people, you have to use push to talk.
Yeah.
And I hate using push to talk. I can't comm while holding down a button and doing all the rest of the stuff. Doesn't work for me. So I joined the party. Immediately, the guy proves why he's chat banned. Just vomiting out slurs. I'm like, oh, I shall now leave. That's me. I'm done. I'm out of there.
You win the game?
No, of course not. No.
You never win.
So-
No, you never win those games.
Overall, good
You
changes.
never win.
That those players. I mean, you might be watching this. You might be chat banned. Use this as an opportunity to reflect on yourself. Think about why you're chat banned. I think there is still some room for the system to be abused.
Yeah, I think you can get automatically chat banned.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is automated, and not in the sense that it picks up like words, but if you get reported, I think for voice stuff, there's a chance that people are abusing that to get people banned. But I think those instances are so rare in the first place because
they normally only happen to streamers and stuff, I think.
Yeah, I mean it requires multiple games, I think, of people reporting you for you to get chat banned. As far as I'm aware, could be pulling that out of my ass. But good changes all around. But that was pretty much it. They messed around some hotkeys and other stuff. But overall, very small patch. The real meat of this show, though, comes down to this next one here: TenZ to Sentinels, and discussing that one. That's the big topic.
I didn't think this was going to happen, man. When it was getting rumored, while we were doing our previous show, I thought, God, that'd be great. I mean, it's good PR for Cloud9 after Cloud9 got all of the
bad PR of not letting TenZ.
Yeah, the bad PR from Hiko talking about them on stream. Yep. From Dogman had a whole segment on his show called "Don't Sign with Cloud9" that hit the Valorant subreddit as
straightforward.
Well. Yeah, that really is. I mean, it's not very politicking, is it?
No, I don't think he has
the
a job
Dustin
at Cloud9
Bowerman
anytime
show.
soon.
Yeah, so I thought
Avast?
I said that's the Dustin Bowerman show. That's just how he does it.
It really is.
He doesn't really. He's not run for subtlety, Mr. Dustin with 2 T's. He's not one for subtlety.
And so I thought, even though it all made sense, I just didn't think it would happen. It felt too. It felt too much like a fan theory. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It felt like fan service, but my God, was it amazing to watch.
I mean, it paid off.
Yeah.
It paid off. The biggest question, I think we all had, I mean, I'm going to put these words in your mouths, was, will it work? Will TenZ be able to jump into the pro scene 2 months later and still keep up and still be as dominant as he once was before? Well, I think he joined the perfect team for that, because Sentinels, of the 4 members that are in that team, I would say that they're all pretty intelligent. A lot of that in part because of Shazam and a lot of his in-game leading. Yeah. But also off the back of that, they're so adaptable that if you insert another player like TenZ, the caliber of TenZ, immediately they were just working around him. They were letting him do his own thing. They were enabling TenZ to just pop off, do his own thing. It was really the perfect team for TenZ to just kind of be reintroduced into pro play, because he just got enabled to be an absolute freak beast in the matches. It was absurd.
I mean, I think when we were talking about him eventually wanting to come back, and in his words when he was saying a while ago that he wanted to come back when there would be LAN events again, if you're looking down the line towards the end of this year and thinking, oh, TenZ will come back for the championship.
Or like September.
Later.
Our theory was they could be coming back
September,
for LAN in September.
Or something around that time. Then it would have been more significant.
A full year.
But he only stopped playing on a team for 2.5 months when he played in this tournament or so. Maybe a little bit over that. Just not enough time to really make a big difference. Even though the game has been progressing faster, and he certainly has a lot more competition in terms of, there are a lot of other excellent players out there now, specifically if you want to just look at what he excels at the most, which is aiming, mechanics. There are a lot of really good players out there now. So he's not alone in excelling in those fields now. But he is still just amazing.
I mean, he's still
and
incredible.
He didn't really drop off.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty sick to watch overall. You wanted to say something, Josh?
Just that he's actually been. I did want to give a bit more credit to TenZ himself though as well, because he, even though you couldn't tell it from listening to his interviews, he does seem like he understands the way that Sentinels also play very well. In that they had an hour of server time before their first match of Masters, where Shaz said that they just went through a bunch of their defaults, and TenZ seemed to understand them pretty damn well. Like, even when they were playing on stuff like Split, where I knew Sentinels wouldn't be that great on this map, because it's so... The position he plays, the position that Sentinels like to have this Raze player in, is floaty, but it's not floaty to get kills. It's floaty to... You have to be in the right place to put the right pressure on them in order to alleviate pressure for your other players around the map when they're playing these attacking halves. And that, I think, is hard. But TenZ was still trying to do the right stuff all the time. Like, he was mobile with where he was positioning himself. He was going to help Dapper on certain rounds to be able to push up ramp. He understood like what his role was wherever he was on the map. And then when it goes to other maps like Icebox, he's just farming.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Ascent, he actually was working with Sick a lot to try and push mid and play very aggressively there, which isn't the same way that Shaz used to play the Jett when he was playing on Ascent. But it was a nice twist to it. And so you got to see kind of both aspects of TenZ playing to TenZ's strengths on Icebox and Ascent, and TenZ attempting to fit in with the team and doing a pretty decent job of it on Split. So big credit to TenZ for being able to internalize that and kind of get a feel for how Sentinels wants to play in such a incredibly short period of time. They hadn't even played a single scrim together before they played their first game of Masters.
It's kind of crazy.
insane.
It is kind of crazy.
How does Sentinels always end up like that too? They always end up with no scrim time. Repeatedly, every single event, I feel like this team has never had any scrim time together.
Yeah.
Like, always. Like, incredibly unlucky, the squad. And also, because of that, I'm upgrading then. I'm doing the meme format where it's like friendship ended with JC Stani, new friendship with Shazam in terms of my favorite IGL and like an A, because like, it's ridiculous how much Shazam can do for this team while also playing a fragging role too. Like, he's not even in like a controller or a sentinel. Like, he's playing duelist a lot of the time. And he's still, or, like we see him on other roles too, but like he plays Jett a lot. And then obviously not so much with TenZ entering the squad, but I do find it incredible how much Shazam has made this team so consistent despite roster changes, lack of practice. It's incredible. And everyone walks away, because that's one of the few things, one of the 10 words TenZ said in his interview, like, was that, Shazam's amazing at IGLing. Like, this guy can make me understand anything, like, I feel like Shazam has to be at this point. I've upgraded him to a must buy on the IGL stock market. Like, this guy is amazing. I feel like the consistency he's had is incredible.
Yeah, he gets underrated a lot, I think, by the general community consensus. I think that comes from CS. Again, I like, of the CS that I followed, it was like in Europe mainly, a while ago. So the NA scene is something I'm quite ignorant with, but a lot of people seem to dislike him from his past in Counter-Strike. And I think that's kind of carried on into Valorant as well, at least the community consensus of a lot of these players. But he gets underrated a lot, I think. He gets overshadowed by a lot of the other players. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Avast. He's the one who's enabling a lot of this team to succeed. I mean, we've all seen the clips of his little notepad documents on his desktop and other stuff. Like, the guy is a phenomenal player because he's doing it all on the duelist role as well, which is very, very rare.
Do you want a crazy stat about TenZ? There was a Reddit post that had a bunch of different stats, and it prompted me to go and have a look as well. But this was one of them that was brought up by Reddit, which was that the highest first kills in Masters so far is from TenZ, and he has 28 first kills to 10 first deaths, compared to the next best, Shot Up, who has 19. So he has 9 more, like nearly 50% more than the second best in terms of first kills. He was taking duels so often and winning them with scary kind of consistency.
That ties into something I was just about to say. I wanted to touch on. You were talking about this being like fanfic levels of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But when I saw it initially, aside from that is the case, but this move just also makes the most sense for all parties. He fits into the role that they need, that was absent from the team now, which is a fearless entrier, which is what he is. But then also, he fits into the Reyna role on Icebox, and he can play Jett on the rest of the maps, which just enables Shazam to play Sova and Breach, which he was always really good at. He just wasn't playing. Also,
I think there's another aspect to this too, which is that I think Shaz was on the Jett, also because he's great at Jett, but because they didn't have another player that could cover that previously. It's not something that was previously played by their star entry player. So it frees up the team a little bit. It's almost, it's like a more consistent comp that they can run across all of their maps now as well.
Yeah, and aside from that, just looking at TenZ and his journey so far in Valorant, this move for him makes so much sense. As soon as you saw the rumors for this, I just knew it was going to happen because I knew TenZ wanted to do this. You just know that he wants to be with this team and compete. I am 100% convinced. Like, people are like, "Oh, please! I hope this roster stays." Is it gonna? This roster is staying together.
Well, I mean, assuming that Cloud9 allow that to happen and put a reasonable buyout the Sentinels.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see a future where this doesn't end up being.
I think even if they put a completely unreasonable buyout, it's going to be a classic Sentinels move in Valorant to just drop a ridiculous bag on it, anyways. in my view, like C9 Jack could ask for like a mega yacht and something, and like Sentinels would be like, okay, fine. Do you want Booga's face like on it as well? Like, what do you want here? So I think I totally think Sentinels would pay an incredible bag for TenZ.
Yeah, I think
it fits their MO in this game, and it fits like the legacy they want to create.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the kind of let's start talking about the North America, I guess, Masters recap so far. But one part of that as well as to what might incline Sentinels to drop the bag is that the numbers have been very promising. Yeah. Numbers have been really promising over the course of the esports scene so far. I mean, we're in the early days yet of the VCT. In what the first Masters event, we're not even in the LAN period of the game yet. But we're going to start to see international competition. The viewership numbers are really nice for North America. For the rest of the regions, again, there's still growth to be had, but it's going to happen with time. It's honestly just inevitability in my mind that the rest of the scenes are going to grow with pace again once international competition kicks up. But viewership numbers are a great reason to invest. So even if they do end up asking for a lot of money, again, Sentinels, like you said, Avast are that kind of team where they will just drop the bag, it feels like. And it's a good match. But so far, the tournament has been pretty sick. I love how it's like a slow burn over the course of 2 weekends. That's my favorite concept for this, for Masters at least. That I don't feel like I have to sacrifice an entire day to watch it. Just like a part of the day, and I can get on with the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like
it isn't just
it's really nice. I think it's especially for the major tournaments. I wouldn't like it for some of the qualifiers, but so far it's been enjoyable to watch.
They also in this first season of Masters 2021 have left us with the greatest cliffhanger for part 2 of Sentinels versus FaZe. I mean, genuinely, that is just there's just infinite discussion. As to who will win that match. And I've been thinking about it all week because when we were doing the companion stream and we were talking about predictions at the end, I couldn't give one for this game. Thought about it all week, still can't give one. I don't know who's I just don't know I don't know who's winning this game. But I don't know who's winning this game.
I think so much of it is unpredictable in a similar sense to FaZe against Envy. I think that game as well was very hard to tell. Because the style of FaZe is to try and play for a lot of duels with their duelist players. They're going to try and the way that FaZe have been dominating their opponents recently is that even when FaZe are put in uncomfortable positions, they'll be wide swinging their opponents and getting the kill on them anyway. And that seems to be a theme that just hasn't been solved by any team. They can't figure out the timings of when they're going to get pushed, and they can't win the duels. Like FaZe are very good at being able to isolate 1v1s around the map and then dominate their opponents when it comes to that aspect. And Sentinels have always been extremely good at absorbing the aggression from old FaZe before they got good. And they've been good at being able to win those 1v1s because they're a really skilled team. But when you have like TenZ Baby Bay hunting for each other around the map, if I'm thinking about a map like Icebox, where TenZ is deliberately on A hunting for duels, and the FaZe guys are deliberately hunting for duels around the map to be able to get them that entry, I want to. It sounds kind of flippant to say there is no strategic component that you can use to decide the outcome of the match, but like that is the strategy for both teams when it comes to this, is to put themselves in best positions to win those early entries. And depending on which way that duel ends up going consistently throughout the match is going to just define who wins. Like if Baby Bay keeps hunting for kills and TenZ keeps ripping his head off.
You think so?
I think that's what it's going to come down to.
I look at that match and I think out of all the teams that are going to be best equipped to deal with FaZe, it's Sentinels. Because I think that they've got the mechanical ability. They don't lose confidence when they're down in a match. They're always willing to make the theoretical right play in their minds in terms of the right play style. When I watch so many teams play against Sentinels, sometimes they catch an early lead, but Sentinels will never stop playing how they think they're supposed to play to counteract what's being done to them. And I think out of all the players to shut down Baby Bay, TenZ is probably one of the few players capable of doing so in just these raw gun duels. And so much of their play for FaZe relies on Baby Bay getting one or two, or like Baby Bay getting one, Corey then cleaning up the rest. Yeah. When you get left in these scenarios where it's Zachary and Raucus, or Marv even, I mean, Marv, I think, has been having a great tournament, but when it's those three guys, I find it, I don't have any stats to back this up, but just from watching the games, it feels like they have a less, they have a much lower percentage chance to win a given round if Baby Bay doesn't end up getting the opening kill that they need. Yeah. And that's much more likely to happen against a team like Sentinels. On top of that, they've had a week to prep. Shazam is going to be literally grinding the VODs, and his notepad doc is going to be approaching 56 kilobytes. Yeah. It's going to be fucking huge. Like the guy is going to have a lot to say. Or there's so much footage on what FaZe Clan, how they play on specific maps, the tendencies of Baby Bay, who is, again, the spearhead of this team, and how to counteract that and how to shut it down. They've got the perfect piece, the perfect player to do that. It's TenZ. I feel like the longer I thought about this match, the more I think Sentinels might just end up taking this in 2-0, and it might be anticlimactic.
But are you genuinely confident that they're going to be able to shut down Baby Bay?
Even if they end up trading it out, right? They take out Baby Bay, Corey's left alive or whatever, I don't know. They end up trading it into like a 2v2, and it's left into a 3v, I'm not sure, like a 3v3 with like Marv, Zachary, Raucus versus, whoever's left on Sentinels. I think those guys have the experience to be able to just win those rounds outright. And they're not gonna falter in those high pressure scenarios, especially in this upper bracket match. I think Raucus and Zachary and Marv have been having great games. They've been playing better than they ever have before, but Sentinels have got that one thing over them, which is that kind of experience playing in those high pressure scenarios, upper bracket finals, and they've got the mechanical skill to boot to win a lot of these duels and the style that they like to play. I just have more faith in Sentinels, I think, overall. I think the percentage goes down to Sentinels with this game. I can just see the world where it ends up in a 2-0 because
I can respect that. I mean, they've always beaten them in the past, and they do seem to have a very good read compared to other teams of how FaZe like to play. But that is old FaZe that they've slapped around, not new FaZe.
I mean, for as much discussion as there is about Baby Bay, which is well deserved, I think one of the underlooked aspects of FaZe right now is how drilled they are in actually taking map control and using utility combos to find openings with other players, specifically Corey. I think Corey is flying way under the radar with all the current discussion around FaZe right now. Not only in that he's finding a lot of individual success in his Raze play, being on the Raze on every map now, but also in how his utility sets up so many plays for their team. I just think FaZe right now go beyond the narrative that is being spun about them. I think that there's genuinely a lot more depth to their play now that people, I think, are still giving them credit for, honestly.
Someone was doing a VOD review. I think it was Sean doing a VOD review of their Icebox game, and his immediate response was like, where's the strategy here? They're like playing unorthodox and it's catching CS teams off guard. I tuned in right to the start of his stream, and I was like, one of the comments that stuck with me. Again, I'm putting my own take on this, I suppose. I can't remember word for word verbatim what he said, but that was the general takeaway, was that, where's the strategy? And I think Icebox is probably the worst map to watch, to look at that point you've just made.
This is a good map if you want to look at, if you want to have an illustration of the point I made, you should watch FaZe play on Ascent.
I agree with you. I think that there is a bit of nuance to FaZe's play, and they are catching teams off guard by playing unorthodox, catching timings on players. And it's working because they are more skilled and they're winning these duels. But there is at least some nuance to how they play, at least ever so slightly, because it's not as if they're doing the same shit that they did in First Strike. It's like,
no, they're so beyond.
That, but
they are infinitely beyond where they were. They have transcended the human existence. They are floating above the rest of us at this point.
We've entered the Wyatt simp era for FaZe. We've gone a complete 180.
It is an astounding turnaround of a team.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I think it's just more so that I think the narrative about how they play is not totally accurate.
I think that narrative is only slightly accurate on Icebox. And I feel like that's also the map which is so pivotal for this series for them, is that if Sentinels doesn't ban Icebox because they feel like they can shut down specifically FaZe sitting there on A and just watching the site and killing 2 people and then walking on the site every time. I feel like if Sentinels find an answer to Baby Bay and Corey and them just sitting there watching angles on A for like a minute and killing someone and then walking the site, I kind of feel that's where the series will be won or lost if Sentinels feels confident enough to take them to Icebox. Because I know FaZe will want to go to Icebox. Like 100%, they're going to want to go there against them. And it seems like the thing that's been just wrecking every other squad they played against is their A hits. And it's not just they're doing a fast execute. They're just sitting there with the musket line, watching, just sitting, waiting for someone to peek and getting a kill every time and then getting onto A. And then I feel like that's where Sentinels can actually, if they just look at the tape there, they can find a solution to that. Whether it be they want to play completely for retakes, or maybe they want to challenge them with a bunch of utility early and get the picks when they're setting up aggressively. I feel like Icebox is the pivotal moment for me, at least looking in this upcoming series, like who determines who wins that match is going to be Icebox. If Sentinels goes to Icebox.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And if they don't allow it to go to Icebox, then that means that Sentinels will be playing on Bind, which I have not felt has been a particularly strong map for FaZe, to be honest. I think that FaZe's best is Icebox, where they can can rely on their duels as much as possible. And once they get to the more tactical maps, they've made a lot of improvements on their Haven, on their Bind, on their Ascent as well. But when it comes to their Haven and their Bind, I think they are good and you can see what they're going for. But I think FaZe have only put in a lot of the effort of the early round to set them up for a fantastic advantage. And then some of their mid-rounding and some of their late rounding as well ends up being quite lacking, especially on Bind, actually. But they've been able to batter teams, even so, on there, because they get so many kills. It's ludicrous. If you watch the Envy game against FaZe on Bind, they took so many disadvantageous fights and boomed Envy. They're getting flushed out of areas with utility, and then they wide swing and they kill 2. And it's that can't happen. You can't beat FaZe if you do the right things, but they still kill you. You just will never beat them, because the point of utility is to give you an advantage in the gun duel, right? You're very rarely just outright killing someone with utility. And I suppose with a flash, it's overwhelmingly an advantage because they can't see you, they can't shoot back. But a lot of other utility is designed to displace them from good positions, force them to make a bad decision of pushing through a smoke or wide swinging at the wrong time when you're expecting them. These kind of things are the benefit of using really smart utility. And I felt like there were many, many times in this series where Crashies in FNS would be contesting Marv in showers, and they use a cam at the right time, and a guy swings through, and Crashies should be favored, and Marv hits a ridiculous flick shot to be able to take the kill. Corey's holding Cubby, and he gets naded, and he swings out, and he kills 2 in hookah. Like, these kind of moments were destroying Envy, and it ended up still being a relatively close game as well. These are the moments, for me, that define FaZe when it comes to the majority of their maps, where they are winning when they shouldn't be. And I know what you mean, Wyatt, in terms of like FaZe have done so much to like set up the situations where they should be winning. And I want to give them full credit there. But to me, what takes FaZe into the dominance right now is when they win when they shouldn't be winning. When they just boom teams because they're just skill gapping them. And that has to stop happening against Sentinels like this.
I mean that
is just
but I
ludicrous. These kind of moments that happen with FaZe, and they happened with regularity against Envy.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think those moments always, or at least not always, but rather they heavily tend to come from Bind. I think Bind is the map in their pool that when you watch it, still looks the most comparable to a FaZe VOD from a couple months ago. But even within them leveling up, I think that their Bind play, you still see the same individual tendencies and the same kind of overall.
Do you think then it would be a good
tendencies.
decision for Sentinels to ban Masters and ban Icebox?
Be done with the tournament.
Just finish the tournament, ban Icebox, and go to Bind. Because I'm still
Honestly,
not convinced.
Yes.
I don't know.
I think Sentinels would beat them on Bind, but I don't think they're going to take it.
I think that's the only play they
I
can
think
do.
that I think it's most likely this is going to be a Sent Haven Icebox,
That's
which
the-
are just
that's the
3
normal
good
map
maps for all 3 good maps for both teams, which
Yeah.
would be the best also for the banger series.
Probably,
but
yeah.
For Sentinels to win, I think they need to play Bind. I think they need to have Bind prepared because it is the map. Again, yeah, FaZe look the most comparable to an older version of FaZe on this map. To me, their best maps right now are Ascent, Haven, and Icebox. In what order is kind of hard to tell, but I
think
that
Icebox is clearly their best, actually.
I mean, I think their Ascent is really good as well. And I think Sentinel. Well, history would tell you that Sentinels would probably pick Haven unless they're thinking what we're discussing right now, which is that their Bind is the weakest map in FaZe's pool that we can actually take them on. Like, FaZe are not going to ban Bind.
It has previously been a struggle for Sentinels, and I also think that this version of Sentinels is not as well. I mean, maybe with a week's practice they might change this, but they didn't look as comfortable playing on Split, where there was way more like coordination required for the team. In terms of not coordination in terms of like a site here, but coordination in terms of the timing of pressure on different sides of the map and playing the information game. That seemed to be a little bit of a weakness for them, just with the integration of TenZ. That makes perfect sense. But I feel like you want to get him on roles that he can just bang on. Whereas maybe on Bind where he has to play the Raze, I don't know whether he can.
I want to cover the other matches as well.
Yeah.
Because we spent a long time on this FaZe.
I mean, it's going to be
I mean, this is the banger of the century.
We do have predictions to do after this as well, where we're going to go over it, and we can go back into this conversation then, I think, because we've gotten sidetracked a little bit, but we can talk about some of the matches that have transpired at least. I mean, we can start from the top here with Envy versus Gen.G, I suppose. Gen.G also still in this tournament, but like, how do you guys want to do this? You want to go through?
I just think we'll pick out some interesting games. Not all of them.
Sure.
Just some interesting ones. Like, for example, I'd like to talk about 100 Thieves as well. And their run through the tournament so far. I think Immortals underperformed compared to my expectations, though they seemed on Twitter to be like happy about the future. It seemed like they were retooling what they wanted to play, shot up playing a variety of different stuff. But I was a little disappointed with how they flopped out of the tournament. And then 100 Thieves got destroyed by Sentinels. And when I watch 100 Thieves right now, they're extremely predictable with what they're doing. They seem to be struggling as well with all aspects of aggression, playing the single duelist comp. They really need to retool how they think about the game. And I think they need to go and watch some European VODs. This team is trying to play like a European style, but they haven't figured out how you're supposed to have people enter into sites when you only have one duelist. Like they just don't get it. The EU teams right now are so good at putting their omens in positions to like almost entry for their team. They'll like ult, like on Ascent or on Haven where you have high grounds to ult on top of in the middle of a site. They'll ult on top of those so that you can see everything. You can see the site anchor.
Break the crosshair placement.
Break the crosshair placement, and then their duelist comes in and gets that kill, or they stick the teleport, and suddenly you've got 2 people in the site instead of 1, or they'll do blinds, and they'll teleport in aggressively on some maps, or they'll just have their breach play really aggro with the rest of the team, or their Sage, this kind of stuff. They really are just kind of hanging Asuna out on a limb right now, and waiting for him to make some magic.
It makes him look bad as well.
It does make him look really
bad. When they
bad.
fail, Asuna's the one who is taking, you look at the scoreboard at the end, which is what a lot of people judge the performance of these players on. And just as it was dicey, the next player that people will be calling to be cut if this carries on with no change in playstyle will be Asuna, despite the fact that Asuna is a fantastic player.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the community sentiment seems to be turning against Hiko right now rather than anybody else.
But all you need is Hiko to have one good game, and that'll go the other way.
Well, exactly. I think now is probably the worst that the community sentiment will ever be against Hiko, because he's had... This, again, was another stat pulled from Reddit this morning. He's had 0 out of 22 clutches so far in Masters. He's found himself in 22 clutches, which is something like... I think that was like
22 is absurd.
That's like 23% of all the rounds that 100 Thieves have played. I think that was the stat. And
that's
a lot of rounds.
And
that's
almost 1 in 4 rounds.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
It's just an excess of rounds. So many rounds.
That's obscene.
Yeah, and he has 0 clutches. He has the 4th lowest first bloods down there with Nitro as well. And he has the least first deaths, obviously, in the entire tournament as well. And when you just watch him path on the minimap, I don't want to say it's all down to him, because I think that actually they could have Hiko at the back of the pack if Ethan and Nitro were way more aggressive. But I don't think it's healthy for the team to have Hiko continue to play like this. And I think that this change is needed to come for a long time. And it's not a change to personnel. I don't want them to cut Hiko. I just want him to realize that there needs to be a flow to how he plays, so that as the utility is used, of course, he's going to drop to the back of the pack. You can't run in while you're droning. That doesn't make any sense. But after you use the drone, you need to catch up with the rest of your team so that you can get in position to help them. You can't just continue to stay at the back of the pack. It has to be a lot more dynamic movement between the front and the back.
Do you think this is a limitation of the comps they're playing though as well? With Steel playing a lot of the Killjoy most of the time, whereas normally you'd have like a trip to watch the flank. Eco's been having to like hang back and watch the flanks a lot more.
I do think that the Killjoy seems like it's trending out of style to me. Whenever I watch Killjoys being played, I feel like Cyphers are getting a lot more value at the moment. But there are still ways to make it work. I don't think that that's like... You can't just say it's impossible to play aggressively when you have a Killjoy.
Yeah.
There are timings like... You can make triple duelist with 0 or even like the FaZe comp where you have no Sentinels work. And it's because you're going fast forwards so that there isn't a timing to be flanked. And then when there is a timing, you turn back and watch it. You don't need permanent utility at your backs at all times. You don't need permanent people watching behind at all times, because there are certain timings on when they can flank. And that's finding those timings.
I mean, I feel like Dapper himself said
really
that Steel is the most... Obviously, part of it was a meme, but Dapper himself said that he thinks Steel is the most predictable player in NA right now. Like... Because the way that he plays is, if you see him on the lurk, if you see him watching an angle, it's very likely the rest of the team's not there. You know Hiko's not there, he's in spawn. But like, that's like, the point being is that I feel like it's not, the Killjoy, I tend to agree, meta-wise, has probably trended out. But Steel's playstyle for sure, and I think Steel himself has acknowledged this, is definitely been figured out. Like, heavily by good team. By elite level teams, everyone sort of figured out, okay, here's what Steel's going to be doing. And if Steel's going to be here, Hiko's going to be here. I bet you could set up like a trig function here, set up the degrees and the radians, going back to the unicircle, and you can see exactly how far away Hiko's going to be from Steel based off this position, and then how far away Hiko and Steel are from the rest of everyone else. Like, it is 100% an issue for them of, I don't necessarily think it's necessarily meta or composition, it's playstyle. It's playstyle, and I don't even think Hiko's playstyle is, like you said, Josh, I don't think it's inherently bad. you just can't do it all the time. You can't just be like a total war AI pathing where like you're just like running into walls and waiting and you're lagging behind everything. Like, it can't happen. Like this, I think it has to be far more dynamic for this team. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, they just need players that are going to be more active, more proactive in mid rounds to actually take map control and potentially find openings, which is just currently non-existent. Leads me to the greater point that we've been alluding to for. I mean, yeah, TenZ freak. But the comparison that we've been talking about bringing up, or I've been talking about bringing up for years now. The Hiko Magic the Gathering analogy.
Here it is.
It's finally happening.
Are you busting it out?
He's gonna say
right
it.
here.
I'm gonna say
right now.
Yep. No, but this is something we were in the kitchen. Me, Bren, Kurt. We were talking shop. We were just talking. We were just spitballing, talking Valorant.
Yep.
And we play a lot of Magic the Gathering. Yep. But one of the concept that was created was that Hiko is the equivalent of what is in Magic known as a win more card, which is essentially a deceptively good card that doesn't actually help you if you're behind, get in the lead to win games, or to win games straight up. But if you're already winning, it'll allow you to go over the top and just crush your opponent. And now, in this analogy, in the anatomy of one micro round, I know you're thinking, well, Hiko is in a 1v3 clutch, and he wins it, so that means he is coming from behind to win. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about over the macro of an entire game. When does Hiko have impact? Always in post-plant situations. If you're in a post-plant situation, you're already on your way to winning the round. We go back and look at all the games throughout Masters. Which game was Hiko the best in? It was that game in Challengers 2 against LG, where, to no coincidence, was also Asuna's best game. That was the game where he was just a freak, and he was absolutely popping off. And it was within that game that Hiko had his best moments that he's had in all of this first Challenger Master run that 100 Thieves have had. And it's because they were already on the path to victory, put in post-plant situations, which is where he excels. But pre the actual spike going down, he does not assist the team in entering the route to victory. He is only there to, in some rounds, go over the top and win rounds that they, at the very end of the round, shouldn't have the right winning. But if you're the key of the game on attack is obviously to plant the spike, and that is the route to winning the round, which he does not oft provide assistance in. So that has led me to the greater point of that's kind of how I've been perceiving the Hiko gameplay. He is a win more card for this team. Mm-hmm. He doesn't actually help them on the initial route to winning. When they're already winning the round with the spike down, there will be situations where then it comes down to him in a 1v2 post plant, he'll win it. But you know, those rounds are few and far between, even for the greatest clutchers of all time. But that is just kind of how I've been perceiving his play.
Yeah,
at the moment.
Yeah, it seems like as well that they're very reluctant to lose him in the mid round, because then you lose that value of him in the post plan. And so they're not willing to take, I say they, because I'm assuming that it's not just Hiko playing like this and the rest of his team molding at him to get into the site. I'm going to make that assumption. I think they're on board with how he plays. But they are unwilling to allow Hiko to risk his life by going into sites and helping trade, or it's not even trading as well, because that makes things narrowed too much. Like you've got blinkers on, only looking for him to trade. He never ever draws attention for anybody else. Like he never also holds angles for, I say never as well. You can obviously find examples of this. I'm exaggerating, but it's less, he's less tendency towards doing this. They don't hold angles very well for Asuna to entry effectively. Like they're not making sure that he can't be pushed from X direction. Therefore, Asuna can focus more effectively on Y direction. And that kind of support is what makes the EU teams fantastic at still being able to entry into sites with solo or sometimes zero duelist compositions, because the teams are so effective at pushing in as a pack and all covering areas for each other, so that you know that you only have to specialize on this angle. You don't have to be going in with your head on a swivel wondering where you're going to get pushed from. Of course you're going to lose duels if that's the case. So the fact that 100 Thieves, and it's not just Hiko, it's Nitro and Ethan as well, and to some extent Steel, but mostly the original people that I mentioned, are pretty poor right now at finding those ways of getting into areas. And it's not really down to utility use. It's down to where you're positioned and what angles you can hold for each other and how you can space and trade. And that just seems to be flopping so far for 100 Thieves.
I wonder if it's like a philosophy thing where they feel like Sova will always get a maximum value the longer the Sova player stays alive. Because in my opinion, if you think about the utility that gets regenerated out of all the agents, I would argue that the Recon Arrow, Sonic Arrow, whatever the hell it's called, is probably the most powerful piece of utility you can get in a round that regenerates.
Yeah, I would agree.
And it's better than some utility that you buy. The fact that you can get it like multiple times in a round is absurd. But that only happens if the Sova player stays alive.
Yes.
It's one of the most powerful pieces of tools to immediately gather positioning on other players, break crosshair and placements of people who are holding onto a site, because you have to break it. It's like a priority over players in some cases. Yeah, so I wonder if that's where a lot of this derives from as well.
Definitely.
Is that kind of philosophy that they want to be getting the most out of Hiko. As a result, then he's playing a lot more safe than comparatively to a lot of other Sova players. But then it's the balancing act. It's what you were saying, Josh. It's, you know, you got to take risks to a certain extent as well.
But also, it's got to be said, 100 Thieves are a very new team right now. Like, right now, this iteration, not just them adding Ethan, because Ethan himself looks fine. Maybe, you know, needs to be integrated a bit more in the wider problem of them being able to space correctly, I think. But outside of that, the individuals look good from Ethan. But what I mean is they're very new to this style, to this solo duelist style. I think if you give them another week, which we are giving them before they play their next game in Masters, they should have realized some of these issues and they will improve them. We've seen it before from 100 Thieves. They do improve rapidly, and they're smart players. They have issues right now, but that doesn't mean those issues are going to persist for a long time or they're unsolvable. I think that the next time we see them at Masters, they should be better.
Yeah, I agree. And for as much discussion as there is about individuals on the team, whether it be Asuna or Hiko or Ethan being new to the game, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it comes down to the entirety of the team moving forward. The style, namely, I think refining their site executes and refining the timings. But
I want to, let's recap the rest of NA Masters as well. I think we talked 100 Thieves quite a bit. One team I wanted to talk about was XZ's early exit as well, because I'm a big XZ fan, and I still think even after watching this, I think they got a little bit unfortunate running into FaZe Clan, and then Gen.G, Gen.G's always had a pretty rough start early on in these tournaments, but Gen.G looking pretty good in my opinion. I think over the course of this tournament, and yeah, I don't know. I wonder what you guys think, because I still think that there is immense potential in XZ, and the thing that they're lacking is experience in these settings.
I think they got skill gapped a little in their Gen.G game. Honestly, I think Sean was looking way better than he has in a while recently, like finally hitting that potential now, and Win was playing really, really well. Like, I feel like looking at the XZ match, I think they definitely made mistakes. But realistically, when Sean is dropping just ridiculous numbers, and then the next game, if every member of Gen.G is just alternating turns dropping ridiculous numbers on, and you're such a new team, it's going to be tough to figure out what do you want to deal with that, right? Because I feel like XZ are they're like the Fnatic of NA almost to me, in that they are very reliant on their setups and they're very reliant on their compositional strategies per map. And I feel like they just don't have the experience right now to deal with the fact when they're just kind of getting pounded into the dirt. Okay, what are the mid-round adjustments we need to make sure that Sean is not going to exit and get 2 kills on a wide swing? You know?
Yeah, I can see parallels with XZ and like an early Immortals when whenever we watched Immortals and they would do really well, and we think that they were going to go on a run in a tournament, and then they would just crumble against some of the better teams. It's not that I don't think they're losing confidence. I think that part of it is what you said, Avast, where they have their set plays, they have how they like to play, and it's probably just too orchestrated. The other teams are just being able to figure them out pretty easily. But again, it's like, I think experience playing in tournaments, realizing some of those mistakes and fixing them is, I don't know. I'm not selling on XSET. I don't want to sell. I want to hold for a long time.
Hold on XSET.
I want to hold on XSET. I want to be a respectful and reasonable investor, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would actually suggest right now that you buy the dip. I think that this was not... I think that this was a poor showing of their own doing, actually. I don't think that they showed the best XSET. They didn't show the best version of themselves in this tournament.
And I think
genuinely,
they kind of swapped around the roles that really like underperformed, I think, as well, because I think it was even Challengers 3, I can't remember Challengers 3 or Challengers 2, but it was kind of Pura and BCJ. BCJ always has good tournaments. Like, that guy is actually really, really sick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in this case, I think for Masters, Aaron was the one who was having a good time of things, and it was Pura who was kind of struggling a little bit some of these maps. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this team just needs to work out the kinks a little bit. Josh, I'm curious on your thoughts today. As the your brain is escaping your head with every waking moment. So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I think XSET. I don't really agree with the holding or buying the dip of XSET, to be honest.
You're not going to hold or buy?
Giving up?
I'm not going to buy the dip?
No, I'm gonna sell my XSET stonks.
You're giving up
You're
on the
selling while you just lost thousands of dollars.
But I'm not going to lose thousands more.
Okay,
And I'm not saying that XSET are going to be trash from now on or anything.
My God, this guy's so egotistical.
But I think...
Unbelievable.
No. I just have a different opinion on how to manage my finances.
Sure. Go on.
But I think that XSET... I think that now is quite a transitional period for North America. I think that some teams are peaking right now, like FaZe. And I think you could argue Gen.G are peaking currently compared to their previous performances. But there's also a lot of teams that are reworking and retooling and looking ahead to Masters 2 and that kind of stuff. And I don't know whether XSET are going to be able to hold on, because I don't think they're either peaking or improving right now. I think they're trying to figure themselves out after having a good performance in Challengers 2. And I'm not sure how this team is going to hold up to the top 8 teams that currently exist from Masters, and then new teams that are continuing to develop at the lower level as well. Teams like NRG, teams like Dignitas, teams like TSM, if they're able to get back in, Bahunga Donka Kalus or whatever they're called, maybe. But yeah, I think XSET came into this, they're the 4th seed. I don't think anyone expected them to actually achieve that 4th place. I think that maybe you did, Bren, but outside of everybody else that isn't paid by XSET, I don't think anyone actually expected them to accomplish their 4th seed place
at the start of this tournament.
Itself.
We had a lot of question marks. You know what I mean?
Right, but in no one's ranking was XSET making almost to the lower bracket final.
I don't think I did a prediction.
Yeah, bracket, I mean, I didn't see them do it once. So I think XSET they qualified, they had a great run, but I think that in itself was a bit of an overperformance at the time. And even though they look like a team with a lot of promise, I think they're going to get overtaken by other squads.
Don't give up, XSET. I believe in you.
Hey, I don't think they should give up at all. But I don't feel confident about them going into the future. Fail.
I still think they have a lot of potential myself. I feel like I honestly am more optimistic about them than I am in NA, at least, than I currently am about like Fnatic and EU. Like, legitimately, I feel like, because I think I see them in very similar like paths and how they play, and personally I feel like the star power on XSET potentially as they grow with like BCJ and Pure and even Aaron, I think that team has the potential to be a lot better moving forward as they just get more comfortable and get more experience. While I will still hold XSET. I'm gonna hold the XSET futures, the ETF. I'm gonna hold on that, and we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait to see.
Let's yeah. I mean, we all seem, with the exception of Josh, pretty optimistic about Exet. I'm gonna say, Josh, shame on you.
Okay.
Really, just shame on you.
Sorry. Sorry, Exet.
Sharing your opinion on a podcast. Unbelievable. Envy is the other team.
Yeah, Envy's another big team. To talk
Ooh.
about.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Need
What a
another Red Bull.
transition. It's like an old man waking up from a slumber. Just.
I think
Yeah.
Envy actually still look pretty good.
I think they really got quite unfortunate running into FaZe Clan, and FaZe Clan's. I mean, Baby Bay said it. Their plan was kill food, and it's going to shut down a lot of what Envy are capable
I mean, look
of.
at Food stats. What were
Food
they?
had arguably one of the worst performances in his career in this game. Like
5 and 19.
Food legitimately got shut. Like just got completely. He got locked in the cage. The key was thrown away. Baby Bay was sitting outside Smeagol dancing, doing the Fortnite L dance on it. Like Food had a rough time. Like this was a really. I think it was a really bad performance from FNS as well. Actually, even though FNS isn't normally like their fragger, he generally has far more impact, especially on his lurks and setting up in like post plant positions. And he did not have any success like in this match. I really feel like they just got kind of just hard shut down.
Yeah, they got anti-counter striked. I think that's what the FaZe guys were saying, that they have an anti-CS style, that they enjoy playing into teams that are CS players because they just can't handle them. They just run all over them. And I think that's pretty similar to what happened right now. You could see so many examples from the Envy FaZe game where you could just imagine being in the Envy comms and they're like, why is he doing that? That's so dumb. And it works because they catch a good timing, because they have a feel for when Envy are not going to expect them to make plays, and they have the skill to be able to pull it off as well. And then they have good teamwork and a strategic backing to be able to make that still effective.
Yeah. I mean, they unfortunately, they just found themselves on the path of the FaZe steamroller at the moment. When this steamroller will run out of gas, I don't know.
I think,
because they're definitely, look, for as improved as FaZe are, which they are also, you have to say, to some extent, surely they're on some kind of honeymoon period right now, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the shit they're doing is unbelievable. They have to be on, there is some sort of honeymoon period factor where everything is clicking, everyone's, feeling confident, and you can just see it in those games based on one key thing. In every clip you watch from those games, FaZe players are swinging. In every clip, they are swinging. All the time, and they're just booming Envy. I mean, it's just they're setting themselves up with some great utility, as you can see there. Really good timing to make my point. They're setting themselves up with really good utility. So they're taking fights at advantages now, which is the distinct difference, and that is what will carry them into the future. They're actually playing a game which will allow for a higher level of consistency, but they are more great utility usage from Baby Bay.
Stubbing your toe on the box.
Kurt, can you play any other clip while I'm making this point? Oh my God. This is ridiculous.
I mean, that was a nice movement.
But still, I mean, at the moment, there's the level that in this game that Corey, Marv, and Baby Bay were all on. I mean, they were just out of control, man. Like
I have a lot of hope for Envy over the course of the rest of this tournament in the low bracket.
Who do they face?
LG.
Yeah,
I think
LG,
teams have got a pretty good read of how LG play now.
Then either 100 Thieves or Gen.G afterwards as well.
Yeah,
I would say Envy are favored to make it to the lower final.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, maybe it's just Avast in the call. I've been calling him Connor recently. We've been on that first name basis. Maybe I'm trying to appease to him.
You know me like that.
Take him to Nobu.
Yeah, take it to Nobu.
Nobu.
Is there even a Nobu in Texas? I don't even fucking know.
No.
I don't even know what you're saying.
It doesn't matter, Josh.
It's a restaurant. It's a restaurant, Josh.
He's gonna take him to dinner, Josh.
He's gonna fly me out to LA to wine and dine me.
Dinner.
Yeah, he's gonna fly Connor out to LA, take him to Nobu.
I actually am gonna say for Envy though,
later.
I am worried about FNS's role in this team. Also, on top of that, not just because it's not because I think FNS is bad or is a bad fit for this, is like bad at all, or like what he does is bad. I'm simply worried that the role that FNS has played has kind of been like elevated as we look forward. Like when I look at players like Aproto, Kusta, I mean, even like Zachary, honestly, like I feel like the role of their primary Sentinel player has been evolving as the game has gone on. And it's not that I don't think FNS is bad at all. I think FNS is still really good. I think him being with NB can definitely still be a very great move moving forward. I don't think he's going to bring them down anyways. I'm just worried potentially because he was always, if I remember properly in CS, he wasn't always like a huge playmaker either. I am worried potentially with the style that he wants to put NB in and his own personal play style, more of if that is going to potentially hinder Envy moving forward just because of the way he wants to play and the way he wants his team to play around him. It has nothing to do with his individual skill. It's more of just how his fit is going to be. It could be very likely it's going to blow over right and they'll find a great medium. And maybe it was just a very poor performance at that time for both Food and also from himself. But it is something stylistically I'm a little worried about moving forward. Just a bit, but not hugely.
Did Caboose open up to you about this at lunch? Is this something you guys talked about?
We went to Nobu.
He was spilling his heart out to you.
He was we're having a couple brewskis, and he was just a little sad. He was a little sad after the loss. I like how you pick like the lawyer picture of me. That's like the most one of my 3 stages of development. That's like one of my earliest evolutions.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good. Did you just make that?
No, it's real news.
Yeah, it's on Twitter, guys. Everyone check out. Everyone check it out.
Christ.
Well, there we go.
I think next week of Masters though is going to be a fucking bop.
Yeah. Well, also, we didn't really talk about them, but I will say Gen.G are looking like a dark horse in this tournament right now.
Yeah, hell, they're looking
good. Let's do
good.
predictions then.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's do some quick
the predictions, some quick preds, and then we can move on to.
Okay.
I have 40 more minutes.
All right,
but so we're making good time.
Well, I might have to leave early, but you guys can continue.
We're on topic 3.
Yeah,
I'll good time.
Even if I have to leave early, I'll come back in a minute. But yeah, let's do the predictions. If we go over the bracket, look at some of these matches. Let's start with a FaZe Clan Sentinels match because I got something to say about this. We were talking earlier about the maps. This is the point I wanted to make, but we needed to kind of go over the rest of the bracket as well. I think that Sentinels, the way that they lose this is by falling into the trap of letting Icebox through the pool. If they do that because they feel like they have a good game plan of how to abuse the fact that FaZe repeatedly hit A, I think they're going to boom themselves because there's a high likelihood that there's, with a reliance to shut down Baby Bay or a plan of action, it might just fall apart when you're going up against FaZe Clan. And if they end up losing that map by letting it through, they're going to have a hard time, I think, to take the rest of the series. So I think Icebox is a bit of this trap. It's a bit of this trap map where they might think that they have a game plan in mind for how to abuse what FaZe Clan are doing. I don't think they can let it through. I think they need to ban it personally, and they need to take their chances onto a map like Bind.
God, that is a hard...
With that being said,
yeah,
2-0 Sentinels is my prediction.
So you think that... What would FaZe pick if you let Bind?
That means we're evenly split.
I mean, they're banning maps. They don't pick maps.
You're
right?
a team Bind, and Wyatt's team Bind, and Josh and I are team Icebox in terms of what
I think it's a trap to let Icebox through. I really do.
I think they're going to be confident to play Icebox because they believe in TenZ. I think that they believe that TenZ can boom Baby Bay. I don't know whether that's true.
Yeah,
but I think they believe it, and I think they're right to have confidence in TenZ because he's been the most skilled player in NA Valorant since he's played.
Sure.
So, I don't know, man. I think either of those are viable choices for Sentinels, but I think it's still an impossible game to call. I'm going to pred Sentinels because they've beaten them in the past before, and I do believe in Shazam, and I do believe that TenZ is skilled enough to be able to counter them, etc., etc. But I think I'd give them like a 55% chance of winning. I have no idea, man. This is so wide open.
I'll flip a coin.
Yeah.
Anybody have one? I
don't have a coin.
I don't.
What, do I live in the 1950s? I don't have physical coinage anymore.
God,
you gotta say one.
You go first.
I'm in Team Icebox with Josh, but I'm also on Team Coin Flip with Wyatt. I'm on multiple teams here. I'm playing all the teams because legitimately, because I strongly believe that Sentinel's going to take them to Icebox. I think they're going to take them to Icebox. I think they're going to want to challenge I think they want to challenge the let's look at A strategy for FaZe, where they're going to sit there and look at A, and eventually something's going to happen. It's essentially just like watching paint dry, but it's getting frags, and that's what they're going to do on A. And I think they're going to challenge them. And I don't know, TenZ could just win.
Risky though, because I'm scared of that.
I mean, they generally play sick on Sage, right?
Dapper on Sage.
Dapper, that's right, Dapper. I think honestly, this is me like looking to the future here, calling the play, right? I remember I called the play with the Knives and Hunter's Fury earlier on the Gen.G game. I'm gonna call it here for this. I feel like they're gonna line up an orbital slow here from Dapper onto A site. He's gonna hit the catwalk. And then if on the attacker spawn, and they're going to have TenZ hit the widest swing of all time. It's going to be the absolute widest. It's going to be so fucking wide off this slow. He's going to get...
Who the fuck is the guy in the NFL who does this shit?
What, Romo?
I don't know, Tony Romo?
Tony Romo, what are you trying to do? Mate, the match hasn't even begun.
Swing on this. He's going to hit the Lamborghini swing, and it's going to kill like 3 people. I think this is going to happen. I feel like they're going to do some crazy shit like that on A, and they're going to do the TenZ go kill strategy off this utility, and it's going to work.
I'm lost in the sauce.
I'm scared that if they let Icebox through, it's off the premise that they think that their strategy, like part of their strategy is... essentially TenZ being able to keep in check Baby Bay.
Yes, I think that is how you win Icebox.
I am scared if they do that, because that plan it's as good as TenZ is. TenZ against any other team, I think, fuck yeah, go for that strategy. He'll boom them. But FaZe don't play like a normal team. and Baby Bay and Corey, who are perfectly playing off of each other.
You predicted Sentinels 2-0, right?
Yes. But I'm concerned. But I don't think it'll be a 2-0 if Icebox is in the pool.
Okay.
But this is the point I'm making. I'm fucking scared for Sentinels if they think that they can outskill them, and part of that strategy of them letting Icebox through comes through that play of shutting down Baby Bay.
If you're predicting a 2-0, even if they let Icebox through, you're still predicting a 2-1 by virtue of them you thinking they're going to win the other 2 maps.
I'm worried. No, so here's why.
You think they might lose the decider, man?
I think they might lose the decider. I think that losing Icebox, when they let it through and having a game plan for it, might give FaZe the momentum they need to win that third map.
Okay,
I'm scared that they might let them into the game off of that aspect alone. This is my fucking Nostradamus prediction. Typically, I've been wrong, but recently there's been a change in the tidings. I was the only one to predict the FaZe 2-0.
You were, actually.
I was the only one to predict the... There was another match I predicted completely correctly as well.
Yeah, we'll just let that one hang.
I can't fucking remember which one it was. But listen, there was 2 that I got completely right when it came to the map prediction.
Okay,
we'll give you it.
Here's my prediction.
Yeah.
I'm going to go FaZe 2-1. If the maps are Ascent, Haven, and Icebox, FaZe are going to win on Ascent and Icebox. If Bind is in and Icebox is out, though, I think Sentinels will win. But I'm going to go with 2-1 FaZe, and I'm going to assume that the maps will be Ascent, Haven, Icebox, in which case they win Ascent, Icebox. Sentinels win Haven.
It's a wild game. It's a really fun one.
I think it could be a 2-0 in either direction.
Yeah,
it could be anything. In either direction.
It really could be anything.
It could be a fucking draw. They could both be knocked out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But I'm going to go with 2-1 FaZe.
It's going to be explosive. I'm excited for it either way.
I'll put my money down.
What we got next, Mr. Brennon?
Can we do the official Plat Chat coin flip?
Sure.
Go right ahead.
Heads for FaZe, tails for Sentinels.
Sure.
Every good show has to have a good RNG bit. I've determined. People love the wheel. Now they'll love the coin.
So heads FaZe, tails Sentinels, right?
Yeah.
Flip it.
There we
FaZe
go.
wins!
There it is.
FaZe
there we go.
up.
Oh my
Well,
god!
you
FaZe
you can't take ownership of it. You have to say the coin predicts FaZe to win.
Right.
So that way, moving forward, we can establish this bit on hard to predict topics. We just say, what does the coin have to say? And then people are going to start tracking the coin. It happens every time you add an RNG element and you just give it personage. It's going to happen. So just
Nice.
have the coin be its own.
What's the
entity.
name of the coin, Avast? Normally, you're good at coming up for names for things.
I'm gonna name it. Well, generally, you just refer to it as its noun. You just call it the coin.
Okay,
You just call it the coin.
No problem.
Okay. Other matches, I'm not nearly as passionate about, but I will throw out random predictions if you want me to. But 100 Thieves Gen.G.
I could see Gen.G taking this one.
Yeah, I mean, after all, when we were essentially just going in on 100 Thieves and their playstyle and them getting figured out, to predict 100 Thieves off the back of this one would just be kind of ridiculous.
Well,
I'm gonna do it anyway.
I think predicting 100 Thieves is pretty reasonable.
You're going to predict
here.
100 Thieves?
I think it's very reasonable, but I think that I'm going to take Gen.G as my continued dark horse pick in this tournament. I think that they're on a little run right now, and I think this is a good team for them to get a perceived upset win against and continue that run.
I think
So I'm gonna go
Gen.G might even be favorites actually coming into this if you consider 100 Thieves to be a static line of where their performance is. I'm going to put 100 Thieves though because I'm going to continue to have faith in 100 Thieves development until they prove me wrong. Is essentially my thought process coming into this game. Right now, if just judging by what I've seen so far in Masters, I agree that Gen.G are the better team currently. But I think if you give 100 Thieves an extra week, a week to prep, and they're looking at Gen.G and they're hungry for the win and all of that stuff that makes them focused on actually figuring out what they've been struggling with right now, they should still be able to improve a large amount in 1 week because they're playing a new style for them. So I'm going to have faith in 100 Thieves here. I think it'll be a very tight game, though, and I could easily see Gen.G winning.
Yeah, that's where I'm putting... If I was a betting man, which I'm not because it's illegal in the US, where I live, in the state that I'm in. But if I was, Gen.G, I think, is where I'd be placing my money.
I'm falling into the... I'm essentially gonna ride my losses until the stock is worth 0, essentially for 100 Thieves, and that I feel like this team should be better than its performance has led on in this tournament. If they collapse here, if they fall before the finish line, then I'm gonna start rating them a little bit lower. I'm definitely gonna change my analyst rating for them in the future, but Ethan's really, really good. I think Asuna is, the best, arguably at times the best duelist in NA when TenZ isn't, obviously on and Baby Bay, right? Asuna's in that category for me of those top 3 duelists in NA. I think this team should, if they just change up their playstyle a bit, should be able to win this match. And, if they lose, then I feel like we're going to have to really talk about them, what's they're going to be moving forward, because Gen.G is a far easier opponent for them. It should be. It's not that Gen.G's bad by any means, just it should be a far easier opponent for them. And they've had more time to figure out their play style. So I'm still going to go with 100 Thieves, but I would also not be surprised to see Gen.G win this at all.
Yeah.
Next match.
NVLG.
Yeah, NVLG. I think I'm going to go on a limb and say that we're all probably going to predict Envy moving forward here.
Yeah. I would be Envy.
Yeah.
I think that Luminosity they're in a situation where a lot of North American teams are at the moment, where their style is essentially being figured out a little bit. A lot of the early dominance that we saw from LG, and where we had them as the favorites coming into Challengers 3, and it just didn't come to light. I think a lot of it came off the back of understanding how they like to play, and the style that was taking a lot of teams off guard now is there's a lot of VODs that you can review essentially. And it doesn't seem like Luminosity have adapted that quickly.
They've done a decent job of staying in the running.
Of course, yeah.
But I think
they're
tier 1 right now.
If you're going to predict Luminosity, it's probably because you looked at the Envy FaZe game and don't have faith in Envy. But I think that was a bit of a one-off almost for NV, and I think that they should be going on a bit of a lower bracket run from this point on.
Yep, more to do with FaZe and less to do with Envy.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna go with Envy, but still a respectable run from LG. And it's not that they couldn't win; they definitely could, but I think Envy are a bit too high favored.
What the hell are we doing next?
EU, I think.
EU?
Before we get into that, can I give a shout out to our own YouTube channel? We will be hosting a co-stream on our YouTube channel for the NA side of Masters.
This guy.
True.
We have been streaming it all.
Kurt is fucking smart.
Getting the impressions up, getting the engagement up, click-through rate.
That's right.
Percentiles.
And also, if you missed any of the former co-streams, I got a lot of people messaging me asking where to find them. They are on this channel. It's an unlisted playlist to avoid spamming people's subscriber inbox, but you can go to the playlist channel right here on Plat VALORANT, and you can find all of our previous Masters co-streams. So if you're interested in hearing our thoughts live about whatever happened in the previous matches, then you can catch them there.
Yeah, I've also made it a link on all of the videos, so in the description of this video, you can find the playlist as well.
There you go. Yeah, and just to reiterate, co-streams going to be happening with the North American matches on this channel live. You can listen to us talk about the matches all day long. You can see us turn up 30 minutes late sometimes, and then it's just Kurt talking sometimes.
You can see us not understand daylight savings.
Yeah, I mean, even when we don't have the excuse of daylight savings changing, sometimes it's just Josh talking for like 30 minutes. I'm just trundling downstairs, freshly showered.
Yeah, I got to make pasta.
Yeah.
No one's going to be missing the Sentinels FaZe game, though.
No, that's for sure.
I'll whip them out of bed.
Let's move over to Europe.
I might stay in bed just for that.
We're gonna look at the.
Keep going.
We're gonna recap the European matches here. Some of the European games that have happened so far. You guys I think all three of you guys have been following it. I'm the only one who hasn't been doing my due diligence to.
I wanted to
go over these matches.
I wanted to point out as well, just before we jump into it, the enormous viewership difference. Because we talked up the viewership for North America, which according to ES Charts, who's been monitoring it but doesn't seem to have all of the complete information, I think the NA one peaked at 358k viewers, which is absurd. I mean, that's higher than First Strike already, and Masters hasn't even even got to the best game.
I'm assuming that's for the TenZ game, right?
That's also including co-streams, right? Obviously, that's the
but they did for First Strike too.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all combined together because it is all. I mean, those guys. Shroud doesn't normally pull in 150k viewers. So a lot of those are there for the game, you know.
Yeah.
So it's the combination of the two. But Europe, I mean, also shout out to Turkey, who's peaked so far at 90k, which is insane. The Turkish scene is so engaged, and then you've got Europe down there at 40k, which is criminal for what could be the best region right now in the world.
That's nuts.
I mean, Europe has just been just shafted at every possible opportunity. In terms of format and everything, and you're really seeing it come off right now. Less broadcasted games, less storylines, all of that jam. But the games are going to be elite. So if you're an NA fan, go and check out Europe. Give them some love, and you will also love what you're seeing down there too. I think it's elite level gaming, and I can't believe how badly the scene is doing.
That stunned me.
Yeah.
I knew it was bad. I didn't see this list before.
I mean, it may not be complete. It may not be slightly big, but it may
less than half of just Turkey.
I don't know if that includes a lot of the other international streams as well. But this is just the problem.
That might just be the mainstream for English coverage. But also, there's no co-streaming allowed in Europe as well. So it just. Apparently, there's some legal
legalities where if you have a co-stream of a North American tournament, it's only going out to a North American audience. Technically, I suppose. I don't know.
I don't know. There's some weird, apparently
Well, if you do a co-stream
where
of
they can't do
European
it.
stuff, you have to make sure it covers legal bases in all the European countries.
Which just sounds nonsense because it's a global product. Like, there's people from Europe watching the NA ones. How the fuck does that
I don't
matter?
know how it works.
I don't understand what the legality is, but apparently there is some real reason why they can't offer co-streaming for EU. They're not just being petty about it. It's incredibly unfortunate, though, because EU is falling behind. And
yet pulling ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of gameplay.
And it's possible that when we get to Reykjavik, and if EU ends up winning or going deep, or at least beating a bunch of the popular teams, that maybe it gets more attention as a result of that. But at the moment, it is just the little lost red-headed stepchild of Valorant. It's
this is the case of a lot of scenes where just the European side of it gets neglected. Honestly. Is what always happens. For whatever reason, resources don't get put into it. I think that they've really hampered a lot of the early growth of Europe, of the potential of it, off the back of just the formats, on top of the fact that they haven't been broadcasting all the matches. But part of the reason why I think Europe hasn't been growing as much is honestly, if you got to think about as well, just the downfall of North American Counter-Strike in the recent times. The exodus of players moving from North America over to Valorant, like a lot of the top North American players, a lot of the scene just kind of failing over time. Whereas in CS, the scene is still kicking. Like a lot of the top players are still there, and it's all in Europe essentially is where a lot of that top competition is. Where that kind of the benefits of that happening in Valorant in North America, on top of the continued support, means that you've seen this explosive growth in that one particular area and region, and not so here. I have faith that hopefully with better formats, with like more consistent broadcast schedules, with international tournaments, you'll see growth in those regions. But early on, they haven't done what they can to support it, and it's showing here. And the number one concern, the worst thing that can come from this, is then this region getting written off in terms of like support and other aspects because the viewership numbers don't reflect.
Exactly, it's like
which is the worst thing that could happen.
The orgs don't want to invest because the viewership isn't there, and then the scene gets less and less and less supported. Like it can be as much as there can be a crazy positive reaction on the North American side, there can be also that same negative spiral happening in Europe.
Negative domino effect that just cripples the scene. I mean, what EU needs to do is win in Iceland.
Yeah.
To really, for the scene to really flourish and come to life and get the international attention, they need to win.
Yeah.
Which they very well could.
They could. I mean, I think they're favorites right now.
European team winning.
Maybe Riot also need to encourage, though, investment into Europe as they are in the Korean scene, where they're offering these sponsorships for people getting involved in Korea.
Well, I think
trying to grow the scene.
There are enough orgs in EU currently. There's not a complete drought of organizations involved at that level. I don't know what the salaries are like and that kind of stuff. I don't know whether it's comparable to NA, but it's more to do with like tournament organizers, to be honest, and like offering more incentives there. Like, where are the ESLs and the DreamHacks of the world? Why are they being put off from Valorant? What is it about Riot's requirements where it's only NSG and Blast who are interested in running tournaments in this scene? What's going on there? Why is this not a lucrative opportunity for other people? I mean, part of it is the EU viewership for sure, but when you look at the NA viewership that's happening at the moment, why again is it only Nerd Street Gamers, a TO that no one has heard of really outside of Valorant that's involved in this scene? It's weird. And I think that might be part of what's hampering things too.
I mean, it's just unfortunate as well that it feels like at no point EU has really had like a story thread to follow throughout all this time. Like they have if you're into it, but it's not as clear cut, and it's definitely not as clear cut for like when you're looking at a tournament like this with Masters.
Yeah.
What does the average viewer really care about? Like, and I don't mean this in an offensive way to them because it's not their problem. And they're good teams like Ballista or Wave or Ascend, or these teams coming up. When you frame that in the same way as then look at the teams comparable in NA, XSET, LG, Immortals, all those teams have stories. We've watched them for months leading up to this point. We know the players. Like, I can imagine a world where people respect like Batty G in the same way that people think of Thief, but they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that just comes down to the lack of broadcasted games, which again is just the fundamental issue in Europe. But the thing is...
Yeah, I want to add as well, real quick. Also, got to keep in mind that the narratives that we might be reading on social media, I think a lot of the social media we frequent is very American-dominated.
Yes, definitely.
So that plays into it as well, that idea of...
all of the global forums, and I don't mean that in a literal sense, but I mean the places that people come together to discuss Valorant are NA dominated. Yeah. They are websites that are predominantly used by North Americans who are into the NA scene right now. But to talk about storylines for a moment, my storyline coming into Masters right now, that's like the casual storyline that everyone can follow, is everyone knows that there was this rivalry between G2 and FPX throughout all of the Ignition series, and G2 won them all. Even if you're the most casual viewer of, or even just casually interested in the scene, you know that G2 dominated Europe, and they failed to qualify this time for Masters. And so this is the time for FPX, not just because there's no G2, but also because FPX are looking phenomenal right now. And I think that should be the exciting storyline for casual viewers coming in, is that a lot of people are rating FPX as potentially their best team in the world right now. Is this team powered by Angel with all of these sicko fraggers, a new player coming in for Dimisic as well. The team plays sometimes zero duelists when it comes to Ascent, you can see there.
Open those Icebox stats. Look at that.
And their Icebox game was elite as well. They have the best Sky in the world on their team in Shadow. They have phenomenal fraggers on every department, a big brain IGL. They are a really fun team to watch if you're interested in the strategic portion of the game. And they are just an elite squad. They are, to me, like the epitome of, here's your storyline. They've never won a title before. They've won second place at a bunch of different tournaments. Yeah. This is their tournament. Can anyone stop them? That to me is the definition of EU Masters so far.
Yeah, I'll be happily sticking with my prediction from last week that FPX should be winning this tournament because they should be. I mean, they look so good. I can't get over how good Shadow's Sky is.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, he is the best Sky in the game right now. I mean, without a doubt. Do you want to pull up the bracket, though, Kurt?
I think we had it up.
I forget how the groups are playing.
There it is.
At the very
so it's two double elim groups.
Also, I want to throw out a shout out, by the way, on the Sky topic. I know they lost to Heretics. Heretics, they looked really good, but Bold on Ballista is like on the topic of Sky. I'm a big fan. Like this guy, the way we saw a clip earlier of the match, and though I agree that Shadow definitely is like by far better, he has such ridiculous control of the I don't know what they're called. They're the little birds that flash. I don't know exactly what their name is.
Pigeons.
Yeah, the pigeons. You know, he has such ridiculous control.
Wait, they're actually called the Guardian Light.
No, the Guiding Light.
Oh,
Guiding Light. Okay, well his Guiding Light, insane. He can go through like four corners. He can hit 4 corners on that bitch. Like every time he goes through. It's actually ridiculous how much distance he gets on them and how deep he can get those birds. It's crazy.
Yeah. That team was a lot of fun to watch, but they really did just spring out of nowhere. I mean, even people who were really deep in the EU scene didn't expect Ballista to go this far. The other team that I wanted to hop on from our last week's discussion, Wyatt, you said you feel really confident about FPX. Don't know why you wouldn't after watching them play. They look really strong. Even the map they dropped, Split, they still looked excellent at. It's just that Guild outpaced them a bit. But I want to talk about NIP a little bit, who are in the other group, because they were my choice to win this tournament. I thought that they might be the best team in Europe right now. After watching this game, I don't know what's going on with NIP. Ascend are a really good team. I don't want to take anything away from them. They have ridiculous firepower coming out from CNED in particular, but also Bone Cold and Keyless as well. Really good players. And the team's got a good idea of how they want to play and what strategy they want to run. They run unconventional comps at times as well. Like on their Ascent, they tend to run this this comp where they're running the Sage and the Reyna instead of running a Sentinel, like a Cypher or a Killjoy. And so that aspect is really good from Ascend. They crushed Ballista. They look like a very good team in Europe right now. But at the same time, NIP flopped dealing with them. They were uncoordinated. They had weird attacking halves where they were very readable and one-dimensional. And then towards the end of their attacking halves, they ran a lot of elaborate fakes and stuff like that. It was just weird watching NIP. They didn't look as prepared and structured as I had seen before. And I've seen some discussion even from other analysts wondering whether they were sandbagging the game to avoid showing strategies for the later games. There's weird shit like that where Akukos is just running into B main on his own. Incredibly undisciplined, sloppy play from NIP that is not... It's not what I associate from this squad at all. And I'm a little concerned for them moving forwards. If they were saving strats, fair enough. That is ridiculous hubris, though, against a squad as dangerous as Ascend. And then they nearly got punished for it on both maps. When you watched them play out, NIP were lucky to win both. And I think that they really need to level things up for their later performances. Because I've seen much better from NIP. And right now, in this game, they didn't look that great. I'm hoping for the big rebound, though.
Yeah, I land on a similar... I suppose it's hard not to, because it was just such a stark contrast to the level that we have seen them at for weeks. But not just the level, the style of play.
Yeah,
It was just very different. If there were ever a time to believe that a team were saving strats, would this be the time?
I hate that argument normally.
That argument's so bad, especially when the stakes are so high here. The stakes are so high in this situation, and Ascend is good. Like, they're not playing, like, if they were playing, like, some team that I can't, let me even think about it. If they were playing, like, OG, I would be like, okay, fine. Like, totally. I could actually run with that narrative, but not Ascend. I couldn't see that working.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Even though when I watch the game, I can understand that argument, and I even made that argument myself on when I was doing a VOD review of this game. But then the more I think about it, the more I think that would just be unbelievable hubris to do something like that. And I just can't believe it. I feel like it's more likely that they just had a really bad day and they were just lost at that point. Like maybe nerves hit them or something like that in their first game of Masters, and they played not like themselves. They still played well enough to get the win, which is kind of impressive considering that Ascender is still a decent squad, but they didn't play up to their own potential for whatever the reason. They need to pick it up,
and I believe they can. They've shown more than enough consistency. I feel over the rest of their games that this one I haven't lost confidence in them to. I mean, at the absolute least, they should still be able to make it out of this group.
CNED, though, is a freak. If any of you guys are interested in watching like Waddell-esque play, but happening over in Europe, this Jett player I think he's got to be the best AWPer that we've currently got in EU. And he's also really good at the rifling, and he's having a hell of a series recently. Like, all of the games that he's been playing, he's been bopping. And Ballista looked like a pretty dangerous team. Ascend just beat them like 13-3, 13-2, and just pounded them out of existence. Ballista had never lost on Bind before. Wait, had they lost in the previous game? They lose it? Yeah, they lost to Heretics. But coming into Masters, they hadn't lost to Bind before. And they ended up losing here 13-3. They got rolled. They just got absolutely... I mean, there's not that much to say. They just got pounded repeatedly. So
I mean, when Batty G has 5 kills, I don't even know like what's gonna... That's like the outcome that's always gonna happen, because that guy normally is just beaten like no other, just absolutely beaten meat like no other, and that just was not happening. So just was not happening.
The meat.
Well, Bren, can you get us a segue out of that one?
Yeah, let's segue on out of there.
Predictions.
Okay. Do you want to bring up the groups? Nice.
Yeah, let's bring up the group.
Good seamless segue.
Let's predict some games.
Forgot all about what Avast said.
I'm not gonna flaunt my ignorant position on these matches. I would be purely just going off of stat lines. But I'll leave it up to you guys because you've been watching the games a lot.
Well, one of the teams we didn't talk about yet is Heretics, and they still looked pretty decent in their win over Ballista. But considering how badly Ballista got wrecked against Ascend, it does introduce a little bit of doubt in my head as to whether Heretics are going to be able to go all the way. I would normally favor NIP in this matchup with NIP Heretics, but I really don't know considering the performance we saw out of NIP recently.
I'll offer you a question then. Do you think that you're just seeing more differences in styles in Europe, and that's what's been throwing off some of these long-standing teams?
Oh, absolutely.
Like Ballista's playing the double flash comps a lot of time, right?
The
Phoenix and the Sky.
Sky when it comes to bind,
And they have like double dualist as well.
Do you think that Ascent has just got Ascend? Oh my god, the fact that they Ascent. Do you think that they just had a good read on how to adjust to it, and Heretics haven't?
I think they've got a ridiculously skilled team that's happy to play into a team like Ballista.
Right.
Yeah. They're happy to play high tempo. They're happy to take duels against them, and they boomed them every time.
How does that affect your read going into this match with Heretics and NIP?
That's a tough one. It's just tough, I think, because of what we saw. It's tough because of what we saw from NIP, not from Heretics. That is I think the question of this game is, do we see NIP return to the form that we've seen over the stretch of the past month and a half or so, or was that game against Ascend a telltale sign of them possibly slipping a little bit? I mean, that is the question that needs to be answered, and that's where the difficulty in predicting this lies. But I'm gonna go with NIP. I do feel that game will likely be a one-off in the stretch of their story in this tournament.
Yeah, I would be inclined to say the same thing. And then if Heretics end up playing against Ascend, I think I would favor Heretics, but Ascend are a really dangerous team. I wouldn't be surprised if they made some kind of upset. It would still be an upset, I think, but they could do it.
Yeah,
I'm actually favoring Heretics myself. No joke. I feel like I watched that Ballista match, and then when I went back and I looked at the results versus NIP, I strongly believe that team, Ballista, lives or dies by the Batty G. I strongly believe that team lives or dies by that player currently because they're playing a very aggressive double duelist comp. And if Batty G is not at peak badness, it's not a bad bitch in that moment, there is no way that team is going to succeed. And I think NIP had a great formula to shut down Ballista more than in that match. But looking at them play and seeing how Heretics responded to them, I'm feeling confident about Heretics actually in this match based off their past results and based off what I just saw. I feel like NIP is really, really good, but Heretics just seem real informed right now. And also, I personally, just to confirm my own bias, is going to say, yeah, NIP's slipping. So there we go. So I think Heretics.
Okay. And then the other match was FPX and Diffuse.
I think
the only
we're all
match
FPX, right?
Oh, yeah. Dude, the other team we haven't talked about yet, Diffuse. Holy shit, these guys are good.
Yeah.
These guys are actually nasty. This was the team that beat G2 and knocked them out from going to Masters. And I think they've recently got a coach and something. Dude, they are owning. Ascent is their worst map, and they're still able to beat a bunch of teams on it. Well, actually, I say their worst map. They do actually have a permaban, but Ascent is one that they like to... it's the weakest of the three that they regularly get to play.
Sure.
But their split and their Haven is... Or rather, their split and their bind look like their best at the moment. And I haven't actually seen them play on Haven yet, but if it ends up coming down to that, I think that the style that they play should favor it too. Logan is a freak. This guy's aim, he's like the proto of Europe. His first bullet accuracy is ridiculous. He's amazing in clutch situations. He's very aggressive on defense as well. Like Logan and Akuma play together a lot, and Akuma tends to flash him into areas. So like when they're playing split, they'll flash into B main, and Logan will just push into B main and take a duel against whoever's in there, win a lot of the time, or just get all of that info for free and clear it all out. They're a really aggressive team on defense, and the setups work fantastically for them.
All that being said, we predicting?
Yeah, I mean, you
going FPX.
You going with FPX?
Yeah, I'm going FPX.
All true.
Yeah, I mean,
all true. I agree. Going FPX.
I think Diffuse will make it through though. I think Diffuse will drop the lower bracket and beat Guild, and they'll make it through actually. But I do think FPX wins this match. That's
what I'm thinking as well here. The thing with FPX is now that their icebox is just looking tasty. The FPX's weakness is like what? It's only bind. The only way FPX lose against Diffuse is if bind and split go through. If it's like bind, split, I don't know, Ascent or something.
Then, FPX's split. I know they lost to Guild, but
it's still really good.
I think that the way they play that map has the ability to boom other teams.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the my rating of Shadow is just increasing with every day.
Yeah, he is really good.
I still think the split is incredibly dangerous despite that loss. Is essentially the point that I'm getting at.
I agree. But what I love about Diffuse is when there's a team that's aggressive.
I'm leaving the podcast.
Bren's got to go make them.
I gotta go.
He's got to go make them $1 million.
I got $1 million.
He's got to go talk to Jeff Kaplan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye, Bren.
What I like about Diffuse on split though, what FPX do is that they take control of areas of the map and then they silently leave those areas and take control of other areas of the map, right? And that's predominantly how they develop this crushing, choking style where they seem to just take all of the map away from you over the course of the 1 minute and 40 seconds. Diffuse re-push areas on defense, and that I think is the key to doing well against FPX. Once they take B main at the beginning of the round, you need a team that's going to push and retake B main in the mid round and to get that information back. Otherwise, you get just starved out because you don't know what's happening. That, I think, is going to really help Diffuse. I think it just comes down to the map bans, man. Like, what is Diffuse actually going to get rid of here? Probably Icebox. That's what I would get rid of 100% of the time. What is FPX going to get rid of? If they don't ban bind, if FPX don't ban bind and we end up with bind and split being played, I actually think that this could be a cheeky little upset for Diffuse.
It could be, but I don't think... I can't see the map pool going that way. I can't see bind and split being in realistically, right?
It just comes down to what FPX ban. Like, I don't know what... Could you look at this actually? Could you look at FPX's previous games and see what they've been banning? Because I think what have they been playing? Split, Ascent, Icebox. Have they been banning Haven?
What are they playing against or not?
Bind, Split, Haven. Dude, I think they're just banning things based on their opponent, honestly. I think FPX are just really comfortable with all of the maps in the pool currently.
I think FPX would want to play split. I think their split looks so good. Like you said, unlike even though they lost the Guild, I think their split looked really, really good. I think they're going to want to ban bind. I think they
should ban bind.
I think they're going to ban bind 100%. I think their split looked amazing. So I feel like you should try to play split.
And then what would happen in the lower bracket, Kurt, if you want to go back with hypothetically Diffuse, lose that, right? Then they play against Guild, and I would predict I think Diffuse would win this, though. Respect to Guild for getting back on the upward trajectory.
Yeah, and respect to Safe as well, man. Safe in that game against Alliance had enormous, mega impact, and even Safe's game actually against FPX, he essentially won them split. He would have. He did a hard read of FPX and counter-stratted them. The way that FPX like to play, they take mid, they push into ropes, they kill the tripwire in ropes, and then, as a defending team, you are worried that they're going to split mid through ropes on you all the time, and you have to pay attention to it, right? There's just no... You have to allocate a body to there instead of leaving a tripwire. It makes it way more uncomfortable. They tend to do that within the first, 40 seconds of the round, while combining a bit of B main or A ramp pressure. Instead, Safe double tripwired ropes on almost every round. He was allocating both tripwires, one inside ropes and one at the top of ropes, so that when Angel went and broke the first one, and they thought that they were threatening a rope split, they never were, because Safe had always put this second line of defense up. And that was such a fucking gigabrain hard read of what FPX were doing. And it just gave them so much more information around the map. Because when FPX were faking these A pushes, they were never actually effectively faking them. And so Guild could still allocate more people to important areas of the map because one person didn't have to be watching ropes. It's such a tiny little thing, but it was so important in this series, and it helped them win that map.
So are you going to be locking in Diffuse then as well?
Oh, yeah.
I've
locked into Diffuse. I've locked into Diffuse for sure.
I think also G2 got a bit unlucky. Like, the better the deeper and deeper the Diffuse get, the more you're like, oh, I mean, damn, would have been awesome to see G2 in Masters.
Yeah. Well,
but they're not here.
There's always Masters too.
There is, yeah. Come back at Reykjavik.
Oh. All right.
Well, shall we
is that going to
move
forward? Is that
forward?
wrap it for EU predictions then?
I think so, yeah.
What's next on the docket?
I actually can't remember.
Bren.
I don't have the topic list.
Yeah.
Pull it up.
Right. We
highlights
were going to talk about what's coming up with Korea and Brazil. I didn't realize that the Korean Masters was just on a totally different schedule than the rest of the world, and the grand finals are already set. Whether the BO5 with New Turn and Vision Strikers. And realistically, wouldn't have it any other way.
Those are the two best teams right now.
Yeah. New Turn have been the best. They have been the greatest test to Vision Strikers maintaining their legacy. Wouldn't have it any other way. Going to be a good BO5. Vision Strikers should win, but I could see this going to distance, honestly.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, 3-2.
New Turn have taken maps off them previously. Sorry. The thing is, Vision Strikers always look better in the finals. They always look better. I talked earlier about NIP potentially saving strats and sandbagging or whatever. Vision Strikers are the only team that I have witnessed saving strats. I'm not saying they deliberately play worse in their earlier games of the tournament, but they have certain setups, certain execs, that kind of stuff that they deliberately save for the finals of tournaments. They've done it before in AEW. They did it in First Strike, and I assume that they're going to do it again here in Masters. They just have this mentality where it's like, you got to save your shit for the big game. And now that they've managed to make their way to the big game, I expect them to beat New Turn. I think that even though New Turn, this should be like the first real opportunity for Vision Strikers to fall. But I think if they were going to fall, they would have done it earlier in the tournament. I think they would have lost the series earlier on. They don't. It's not that Vision Strikers even look that great right now. I saw there was somebody who made an analytical video. Sorry, I can't remember the name. That got posted to Reddit saying, "This new Vision Strikers comp, is this the best comp in the game with Sova, Sky, Killjoy, Raze, and Omen?" I want to say.
Yeah, they play Glow on Omen permanently.
Yeah, and the concept of this video was, Vision Strikers have come up with a new comp. Vision Strikers are arguably the best team in the world. This is probably the best comp for everybody to play right now, the most consistent. I don't think Vision Strikers have looked that good recently. I think that they have been a little less coordinated with what they've wanted to do. The information gain has been sloppy from them. Like, a lot of the info that they end up gathering in the rounds is not as precise as it was in the past in terms of it actually dictating movement around the map for them. And I think that they're still figuring stuff out. But having said all of that, I think they'll probably level up for the final and still win anyway. They just aren't. They aren't being tested enough yet in Korea. Their first test will probably come at Reykjavik.
I think that's very true. Even though I think this New Turn team will be the hardest challenge they've faced so far. Yeah, I still don't feel like it's a real test. And watching the New Turn games, I feel like they don't adapt mid-game quickly enough to what, specifically in the games that I've watched against Vision Strikers, to what Vision Strikers are doing. They just seem to continually, get exploited by Vision Strikers' plan, and only when New Turn's own plan is working do they find success. But they don't actually have the reactive ability to change mid-game what they're doing to overcome Vision Strikers' strats. So, I mean, every clip today of utility usage has just been awful. I mean, just awful.
I will say though, this is definitely a banger of a match to tune in for. Because at the same time as we're saying we're gonna comfortably predict a Vision Strikers win, if you're not there when Vision Strikers lose their first game, you've missed a piece of Overwatch Valorant history. Oh. There we go, done it again.
There's the first slip up. There it is. Yeah, the first slip up there.
I think this really is something that people will remember because even though we're not in a LAN setting right now and we're not having true international competition, Vision Strikers are the most dominant team in their region right now. You've already seen G2 slip up. There wasn't even a dominant team in NA, but TSM, Sentinels, whatever you want to say, have slipped up. Gamelanders lost their first final recently. Vision Strikers have not lost a match. They are 25-0 or something on split, and they are 50-0 in terms of their series that they've won.
Silly.
It's ludicrous.
Yeah, it is just ridiculous.
If you're not watching when they lose their first series, if it is this series, you're gonna be kicking yourself.
What I will say, and I was talking about this on the couch stream. If they are to lose a series, I hope it's now, and then they bounce back and qualify in Masters too. Because if they don't make it to Iceland in the one Korean slot,
no one's gonna give a fuck about Korea.
I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah,
because we've been watching this team for coming up on a year now. And just the ludicrous hype that has been created around them. I mean, there are a lot of people who who genuinely believe that they are the best team in the world.
Yes, there are people that really believe that.
There is an absurd amount of hype around them. And if even in just sort of like the mystique of Vision Strikers, even if you've never really watched them or you don't really know, or maybe you've seen like clips here and there, like, ooh, Arby's playing Raze and he killed a bunch of people with the rocket. There's always this mystique that they could be. Yeah. You could be if you know about Vision Strikers. There's this thing where it's like, ooh, you're in on the know. you know about Vision Strikers. They might be the best team in the world. And if all of this surrounding them, and then they just don't make it in Masters 2, that's when a team overcomes them. That would be really annoying. I'd be very annoyed. So I would like them to please continue their dominance throughout this tournament and Masters 2, or lose now and then come back and win Masters 2 so we can see them against international competition. Because unfortunately, though, again, New Turn will be a challenge for them, I don't believe it is what you could qualify as a test. We're not really testing what they're made of against, the likes of the top teams from the other regions, which is what I would like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm locking in the Vision Strikers. But I feel like also it's just because New Turn is still really reliant on I think it's Suggest is their Breach player, right? Is it Suggest? Yeah, it is. Suggest. He plays a lot of Breach and Duelist for them. And I feel like they're really locked into playing a double Duelist comp at times with a Breach and getting a lot of value from them. And Vision Strikers just play so much utility and get so much info to where I don't think this aggressive Breach strategy they like to play a lot of times is going to work against them. I don't think it's going to work. I think they're just going to lose map control often, and every time they're going to try to go for a really aggressive play and take that, Vision Strikers is already going to know where they're going to be rotating, and we'll have already put people in there. So I think they're going to lose. I don't think it's going to be a huge match for them necessarily.
Let's take a look at Brazil then, because Brazil, we are about to witness the clash of the giants, and we've already seen a pretty enormous round in the quarterfinals anyway. So Gamelanders took their win over Slick. Furia took a win over Imperial. Now, having said that, Furia got dominated on Haven. So if we want to just take a look at this, if you're interested in going and taking a look at the super teams in Brazil right now, this might be an interesting game because Furia got battered when they were defending Haven. They end up going down 10-2. In some sense, it's impressive that they brought it back to 13-7, but this was unexpected. I haven't had the chance to catch the VOD yet, but it's definitely one that I'm gonna take a look at. But in general, they were favored to heavily beat Imperial here. So that's an interesting little aside. But if you look further down the quarterfinals, if we can bring up the bracket again, we had Pain beating Vorax. Unfortunate because Vorax had, what was it that happened to Crane?
Crane had a kidney stone.
It was a herniated disc or something, right?
God bless him. I mean, rage for Crane.
Yeah, it needs to be drinking the lemon water.
Yeah, he needs a lot of lemons and a lot of it in water.
Yeah, really unfortunate for Vorax because they also got disqualified from First Strike. They weren't able to play because 2 of their players had COVID or tested positive for COVID. So So yeah, they've had a really rough time of it recently, but the final game of the quarterfinals is what I really want to hone in on. Vikings against Sharks. Sharks are the team that recently beat Gamelanders in their first ever Grand Finals loss. This was by far and away the best quarterfinals that we had. Sharks came out of the gates, just demolished Vikings 13-4, and you're thinking, holy shit. Vikings are supposed to be a super team, and they're losing 13-4? Oh my god. But then there was the rebound that came out, and Vikings clapped them on the second map as well. I don't watch enough Brazil to have a good understanding of exactly what the map pools are for all of these teams. So I don't exactly know whether that was like predicted at the beginning based on just what maps they're favored on. I haven't done that level of detailed research into the scene. But just a wild quarterfinals to go and watch. Would highly recommend, if you're interested in watching any VODs before you catch the big games in Brazil, that you take a look at Vikings against Sharks, because that was a wild series to watch.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, looking forward to the rest.
Gamelanders Furia. That's going to be a banger.
That is the ultimate. If you haven't watched the Brazilian scene yet, that is the game to watch. That's the game. 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
March
when?
20th.
August 20th. 5 p.m. our time. 5 p.m. our time, March 20th.
What NA games does that overlap with? Because when we first did our Masters preview, we said this game would be better than any game that's happening in NA Masters.
I mean, Sentinels
FaZe, I would rather watch.
Might be.
Well, it's gonna overlap. It's gonna overlap with the lower bracket grand final.
Oh,
the lower bracket final.
Yeah, the lower bracket final is gonna be. It's gonna be overlapping with that, which is like could be pretty. Be a banger. Honestly, though, no matter what that is, I still think it's gonna be less interesting than Game.
Actually, yeah,
maybe, yeah.
Sentinels Envy. I've seen it before.
Sentinels 100 Thieves.
I've seen it before.
True. FaZe against. Actually, you would have seen every matchup that could happen.
You would have seen every matchup.
All those games, seen it before. Furia Gamelanders, we got the little icebox tease.
Yeah,
we got that.
We've never seen it on broadcast.
Yeah, we got that one little tease map. Haven't seen this before.
Yeah,
but I want to.
Yeah, so
but I want to.
Highly recommend.
When you describe this, Wyatt.
Slasher recently tweeted out his Papega rankings, which I'd love.
Stole from the show.
Yeah. I mean, I call them Papega rankings because they were invented by 4 Papegas. I fully believe that Slasher stole them from us. But he ranked Brazil above North America right now as well, which I think that's fair. And I do also think that Brazil currently, if you go and watch Gamelanders Furia, you're gonna have your socks knocked off. Unless it underperforms for whatever reason, which I can't believe it would. This should be boom, the game of the region. And it should light you on fire. Fill you with the fever that we've been getting, the Brazilian fever.
Yeah. I mean, one of the comparisons I kept drawing as well is that the star player on Furia, Shandy, is Baby Bay. They are two very similar players. If you enjoy the energy of watching FaZe Clan, there you go. Because
but imagine if every team was also sort of like FaZe Clan in the entire region, then that's Brazil, you know? Like it's
but new FaZe. They're very new FaZe.
Yeah. It's gonna be a hell of a game. It's unfortunate that we don't have permission to co-stream Brazil live. Because I think because
the Brazilians are bombarding us every time too. We're like, we're doing the co-streams and literally every like 20 seconds a Brazilian person comes in. Brazil games are on. Why aren't we watching? And it's like, we can't. We're not allowed to. Another 20 seconds pass. New Brazilian comes in. Why aren't we watching Brazil? Wins Brazil without fail.
Yeah. So I think we're probably going to be co-streaming the lower bracket final at that point of NA Masters. And we're going to be banning anybody in the chat that gives us spoilers. And then I think we could probably do some kind of VOD review at the end of the day on our own personal channels instead. So I think that's what's likely to happen on that day. Because we don't have permission to co-stream them live. But my God, it's going to be a hell of a game. And I'm jealous of the people that do get to watch it live. That is 100% going to be my feeling at the time, is that I'm going to feel like I'm missing out by not watching it live. So if you got the opportunity, go and do it. Go and do it.
All right, Kurt, you're the host. What's up next?
The lower third is our
pull
god
Bren.
now.
Yeah, we actually don't even have the topic list. We're just going off the lower third. So it's like a new reveal each time.
VCT teams can't play amateur events.
True.
Now,
allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly true.
I mean, I don't know why one of the players from one of those teams would be making that up.
No, but they might just be mistaken about the exact parameters. We don't have all of the information here, but to give you guys a bit of background, I think Boy was talking about it on stream because that was the part that got clipped. And then some of the other guys from Dahunka Loose.
Yeah, the Dahunka Doinker Alugas.
yeah. They pitched in on the Reddit thread as well, saying that they confirmed it to be true, that if you make it to VCT, as in if you qualify for a big event like Masters, you are not allowed to play in 10K amateur-sized tournaments anymore.
Yeah.
Which presumably is a rule that's in place to stop teams like Sentinels just soaking up all of the money in the scene and winning everything if they wanted to. Like, hey, we won't do scrims, actually. Let's just beat up on tier 3 teams and earn money.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is likely to happen anyway in a normal scene, but that seems to be a rule that Riot has in place. The problem is, it doesn't work for teams like...
It doesn't work for the Dahunka Awugas because they're not a signed team. Yeah. And if they can make whatever, few $100 each, grand each from winning a smaller 10K tournament, that is very significant for, and
not just that, but
humans, but
this
unsigned players.
This specific 10K tournament is actually a qualifier, I believe, for a 25K tournament. And presumably the 25K tournament is not amateur, but in order to enter it, you would have to qualify through the 10K, which means that the entry to a non-amateur tournament is via amateur tournaments, which presumably excludes the teams that would otherwise be allowed to participate if they were invited.
Unless, I guess then they have to be invited directly.
But like I say, we don't have all of the information here. It's just, it seems likely that this is a rule that's been put in place, and there should be exceptions provided.
I mean, the exception should just be unsigned teams.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I think that's the fairest way.
Yeah. I also... I think that the scene is not at a place currently where 10K, 15K, 20K, 25K tournaments are popping up all the time. It's just not, that's not the case.
Yeah, there's like the NSG monthly, and then...
They're 10K tournaments,
like
aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like the VCT, or not VCT. The Vanguard VCS Vanguard Champions Series. Like NA
right.
one, but that's a small tournament.
Yeah, it's not like you don't have an ESL or a DreamHack coming in and saying, "Here's a 50 grand tournament for the best teams to play." That happened during the Ignition series when tournament organizers were dabbling in Valorant. But at the moment, with Riot running the scene and teams are essentially playing every week in, week out, qualifying for Masters. There isn't space or presumably interest from TOs in running these large, big tournaments. So to exclude... I mean, I don't even think that the rule should be in place right now. Like, if Sentinels wanted to play in 10K tournaments, if these 10K tournaments became Tier 1 teams playing in them, I would have no problem with that, to be honest. Because the Masters system is set up for everyone to participate in. There are no, invitational tournaments at the moment. So... if you exclude the Tier 1 teams from playing in the amateur, there are no other options for the Tier 1 teams right now. There's only Masters, because your scene isn't developed enough to have these kind of exclusionary policies, in my opinion. I don't think that... Yeah. I don't think you should... I don't think you should artificially limit the top teams from playing until they have other things that they should be playing in.
That is
I think it's a tough call.
Argument.
I think it's a tough call, though, just because of the fact that, because once you've qualified for Masters, that is the thing that you're playing in, right? Is Masters.
Yeah.
So it seems like the rule is based around specifically Masters, right? Which is sort of this is the event you were participating in. So it's only precluding the teams that are in Masters. You could be a really good team that's not in Masters and still participate, right?
Yes.
G2 could theoretically go participate in Masters right now, right? Or did they get knocked out? I guess they couldn't, right? Because they did qualify. So actually they couldn't, I should say. They can't qualify for that. But like some team that was good, but not quite good enough to make it to Masters is going to be, or VCT in general, is going to be able to compete in these tournaments. And I think that's okay. But I do feel like because of where we're at in the scene, it is probably, there should be like exceptions or like a case by case basis. But I actually think moving forward, I don't really hate it.
I just think like teams even like XSET, if they get knocked out from Masters, not allowing them to participate in events that also have NRG, Dignitas, C9, T1. These are the teams. Like, are you really telling me that XSET is a level above those guys just because they qualified? Like, I don't think that, or you could say the same about any team that goes out in the early rounds, like Ballista and Ascend and these kind of teams.
I mean, yeah, I guess like that actually is.
If there was a 10K
it is
tournament,
a weird place
if there was a
to
10K tournament that came out in EU now, and Ballista and Ascend weren't able to participate, Ballista have only had one tournament where they did anything notable, and they just happened to make it through. Like, there was a comment in the Reddit thread that was saying teams are going to be in a position where they can either choose, we can try and qualify for Masters, even though we know we're probably going to go out in the first round, or if we don't qualify, we can actually participate in a bunch of these 10K events. And I think that that's almost always teams are not going to opt for throwing. Teams are going to have that winner's mentality. They're going to believe in themselves. They're going to believe that they can make a run in Masters. You gain notoriety. You're playing for pride. That's what you're playing for. You're not playing for money. Teams aren't normally driven by money. But I think that there is an unfortunate consequence here where you're giving up on some extra broadcast time, even when you're a team that's like just made it. You've just punched your way into Masters, and then we actually can't show ourselves in anything right now because the scene only has amateur events or Riot events. It doesn't have a good sprinkling of 25K, 50K tournaments at the moment. It's just not big enough yet.
Yeah, that is. I'm hung up on that. It is a strange place maybe to draw the line at if you just made it through to the Challenger final.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
the top 8 teams in your region. It's not like
Cloud9. So Cloud9 and like, I mean, BBG beat them in that NSG thing, but so it's like Cloud9 and BBG are just gonna roll over because they're the amateur teams because they're the 2 signed teams that didn't make it, and then
and T1
I guess
is right.
Dignitas could play. Yeah, Dignitas and T1 could play if they wanted.
Yeah,
but then the Hunka Woogas can't.
Yeah,
TSM can't. Not that I mean.
Yeah, and if you think about
here, but like, well, I don't know.
If you think about First Strike and what that would have been like as well, didn't Slimy Boogermen make it to? No, they didn't make it to the main event. Actually, did they? They just made it deep in the qualification process. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like making it so that it's teams that actually make it to.
Well, then I guess Anbox can't play either. And Anbox could.
Anbox?
Yeah, because they made it to the Challenger final.
Yeah.
So they can't make.
No, they made it to Challengers 3.
Pull up the stats. Didn't they make it to a Challengers final, but they got knocked out in a Challengers final.
What am I looking up?
Which means they can't play right?
No, I think it's only teams that make Masters at the moment. But Masters is going to be rebranded to Challengers finals in the future.
So wait, is it specifically, is this for teams that made it to Challengers or people that made it to Masters?
Rod joins Beastcoast.
Not made it to Masters. Made it to
because it has to be Challengers if the Bahunka Donkers couldn't play because they made it the
Challengers final, like a Challengers 2 final, Challengers 3 final, Challengers 1 final. Otherwise, the Bahunka Belugas could play.
Yes, otherwise they could play. Yeah.
So what I'm saying, like Anbox are a team that could get a lot of value with a new roster from playing lower tier tournaments right now, but they cannot.
Right.
There are a lot of teams in that position.
Yeah, I've had it wrong in my head this whole time. I was thinking about it being Masters, but that's wrong. The HBK didn't make Masters. They made Challengers 3.
Yeah, so if you made a Challengers 1, 2, or 3 final, you can't.
Presumably.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, that's what it looks
presumably.
like. Presumably. I mean, I would actually think that is
or whatever.
We faded the worst of all topics. How does the system work?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's these kind of things need to be solved early in a scene.
Yeah.
And the problem with them often is that there isn't any transparency. That they're just riot rules, handed down from the top, kaboosh, and they end up fucking up the scene. This happened a lot in Overwatch. Not these specific rules, but like the rules around third-party tournaments are so important to create a healthy ecosystem for everybody to exist.
I see what they're going for, though, with this, where it seems like they want to early set up like a stratification, essentially, and they want to have separate pools so people aren't getting suffocated in the lower pools necessarily, because you're like, this is a top-tier team. They shouldn't be taking away opportunities from these lower-tier teams. But also, it arbitrarily divides like what is top and what is bottom, because definitely all those teams that only made it to a challenger final can still go compete in these lower tournaments, because there's no other tournaments to compete in right now. Like there's no other circuit for them to be playing in other than amateur.
The schedule will naturally preclude tier 1 teams from stomping everything. Like there's no way that Sentinels is going to find it worth their time to participate in every 5K, 10K tournament that they have available. They might participate in 1 or 2 if they landed a perfect time, but it's the scheduling of your events that actually separates the pools, because teams will opt for the thing that makes the most sense for them. You don't need to limit it like that.
Well, I think the rule would make sense maybe later in the future, but not now. Yeah.
When there's more opportunities for tier 1 teams.
Yeah.
And then you limit them to only participating in those larger opportunities rather than the... Yeah, I could see that making sense.
So anyway, the more important topic, Fraud joined Beastcoast. Kurt, bring it up. Bring up that lower goddamn third. What does it mean? Is he out for vengeance?
AZK and Brax joining Beastcoast? Confirmed?
Is that true?
No.
Is it a rumor?
No.
Can we start that rumor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get ready to hashtag make waves with the new head coach of our Valorant team. Official Fraud. Trophy. Wave emoji.
Nice. Yeah.
A little blast from the past.
I
remember the 80s? They had ambulances back then.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore. They're gone now. They're gone now.
Is there there has to be a narration over this, right? I would like to know. This is important. This is very important.
The fraud conspiracy deepens. The Pulitzer Prize still available for anybody.
Yeah, anyone that can bring out that story. It just shows that, okay, Fraud still wants to coach. He's still in the scene.
Yeah, good for him.
Beastcoast, they were looking okay-ish at times, I remember. But I think they've had a lot of roster moves, correct?
They have had a million and one roster.
Yeah, because they used to have your boy Dre was on this team at one point before joining LG.
Your boy Dre, Elevate for a while from Fortnite.
So they've had some okay players here. So who knows? It wouldn't be crazy for a former coach to bring over players from their old team to their new team, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, because is Beastcoast an actual org?
Yeah, it is.
Are they?
Yeah, it is an actual org.
Okay, because theoretically, then that makes it actually more plausible to me, because that's the mother duckling theory is kind of prevalent in every esport, where a coach goes somewhere, especially if they split because of vision differences and players are splitting, and they'll bring players with them elsewhere. Does that say that AZK or Brax is going to be here? No, I don't think that's necessarily true, but it's more of it's an org. Fraud's there. They're in the process of rebuilding. They only have 3 players signed.
I gotta say, I like this video though.
It's a sick video.
I like that they've gone for a real stylized look.
Yeah, it's really well made.
I like it. I like it. It's funny as well.
Yeah. It reminds me of that old 80s music video.
I was going to mock it because the aspirations are so ridiculous for Beastcoast, established dynasty, but I think it's a bit tongue-in-cheek as well. It is funny. It's I don't know, and it just really fits the stylized idea.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's Take On Me. It reminds me of the Take On Me music video by Aha.
Yeah.
That's for any of you people that were kids in the 80s that are watching the show.
Can you give me a rendition of that high note in that song?
Oh, God.
I literally cannot. I physically am not capable of doing it. So
don't try. But no. That was a cool video. I will say one thing about Beastcoast. I swear I mentioned his name so long ago, and I'll mention it again. But I think that their Omen, B-Dog, is pretty good. He's been an under-the-radar solid Omen for a minute on this team. He's been with Beastcoast since, I don't know, the dawn of time, since Egypt erected the pyramids. He's been on Beastcoast, just flying under the radar as a very good Omen player on this team. So...
Well, once they get AZK and Brax, then he won't be under the radar anymore, Once they do that.
Yeah. I mean, I did think that Fraud, AZK, and Brax were just going to start. We're going to try and, pitch to an NA org. I mean, a big NA org, though.
Only 3 players on the roster.
You think Brax and AZK are going to join Beastcoast? You think Beastcoast
I mean, honestly, the puzzle pieces are there. The puzzle pieces are sort of there, but I'm not saying it's going to happen.
I mean, if they got big funding, maybe. But I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Brax and AZK have had to be a little humbled in their search for a team recently.
Maybe Fraud wants to build a more, small commune type of teim after dealing with big business in Team 1.
He wants to go for something
the
very
ethics
ethical.
Didn't line up. Yeah, he wants to make, the vegan of teams, He wants to be a very nice, ethical squad.
Yeah, he's going for hydropower rather than fossil fuels with Beastcoast.
All right, Kurt. What's the next topic? Lower third man.
Life
what's
is
it gonna be?
By lower thirds.
Oh yeah.
Cloud9 drop Vice. I mean, the actual inevitability of this 6-man roster theory. I mean, this is what I can't remember if this was a thing. I would say but I know I said as well on the show when they got poised in the 6-man thing, that it was only a matter of time until someone got released.
Yeah,
I thought it would probably be Mitch since it was Jett for Jett, but then they started doing the Zeta Jett theory. Didn't see that coming. So it put Mitch in a different role. But regardless, Cloud9 dropping one of the original players to move Poise into a full-time role was essentially inevitable from the beginning, I felt. Because why? I mean, what would be the point in signing a hot upcoming prospect to have him be on the bench a lot of the time?
Yeah, it's just it was a silly idea. 6-man roster's the only team that's doing it well at the moment is Heretics. The only team, right? I can't think of anybody else. So everybody else that tries it, I'm just going to assume that they're going to kick a player afterwards.
And it doesn't work in any esport. It's like a trend you see in every game. When as soon as you get extra players on the roster, when the game isn't really intended for that, someone eventually leaves. Eventually leaves. There's some huge drama. Even in games where it's sort of like really the only game that comes to mind is Overwatch, where it's sort of intended to have extra players on the roster, you still have problems with your roster with having extra players on there. It's just so hard to properly manage having players where the resources and the infrastructure just aren't there yet for teams to properly integrate and give everyone okay, this is what we're using for you for. We're going to have you in the, prepping for this, specializing in this. Here's our resources to make sure you're still feeling included. Because what ends up happening is that a player just either gets lapped because he's not getting practice time, he's not getting game time, or he just feels underutilized. And so he wants to go and they want to leave. It happens every time without fail. And we've arrived here for C9. Also, they said that Mitch is now the IGL.
Yes, Mitch is now the IGL for the team. But I'm going to be honest, Cloud9 have taken over my FaZe spot where I don't want to talk about them. They've just made all of the wrong moves since the beginning of joining Valorant. They are in a messy situation right now where they're desperately trying to find something that works. They have some decent players and can perform at a decent level, but they're certainly not 8th in North America as VLR has them because they're still riding the coattails of their previous success.
They're camping the leaderboards, essentially. That's what they're doing. They're just camping the leaderboards here. They're not playing games.
They really are.
Yeah.
Camping number 8.
And I feel sorry for Leaf, honestly, when I think about this team, because an extremely exciting prospect that came over from NACS and was kind of there was so much shit following him from CS as well, with the weird drama with the Brazilian scene and the cheating accusations and that kind of stuff. And he's just immediately found himself in another, well, not another, I don't want to say that the situation is the same, but he's found himself in a quagmire of a team where I think he's going to find it very difficult to escape and reach his potential. Because unless this team makes drastic changes to figure shit out, which I don't think this is the right solution, or I'm not even sure this is a step in the right direction, but I think that the team is going to continue to just wallow in tier 2, tier 3, and fail to find success and have roster change after roster change, role change after role change, coaches in, out, all over the place.
Leader here, there, everywhere. I mean, that was another inevitability.
And Leaf's going to suffer. And Leaf looks like the best player on this team right now. And if Leaf had joined another top team, I think he'd still look like a better player on whatever team he joined.
He absolutely could be on a top 8 in Masters team right now.
I really think so. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I think that this was the best move because they desperately need more firepower on that team. I mean, one of the main issues was just that they have so many supportive players on the team. They genuinely have basically 5 supportive players. Relics is kind of a duelist, but he even and I don't mean that in that like he's not a good duelist, but he's not like an entry duelist. He was the second man to TenZ. And there was a long stretch of time, or I mean not a long stretch of time, but there was a stretch of time where he was very effective in that role, specifically when he was on Raze. But he can't be the solo frag power of this team. And then they have too many players in support roles. I don't know what I don't know what they're trying to do with Zeta. I mean, they got I actually think that Vice was a pretty good support player too, and he could find himself on a pretty good team. Yeah. Especially when he was on Sova and Breach specifically. Yeah. I think he was a solid support player, and he kind of just got the short end of the stick because this team signed 17 support players onto the main roster. Yeah. And even at that, I don't know if he's even the worst player of these 5, 6 when you're looking at them. I don't think he is either. No. So I think Vice kind of got the short end of the stick, and I think he deserves to be on a pretty good team himself. I think that I think he's a good support player, and he could find himself being a good role player on a good team moving forward. And I hope he does. But I also do think that moving Poise to the starting roster. The starting roster was the right move for them to do, because I think if this roster is to ever succeed in the long term, it is going to come from Poise realizing his potential and them maintaining Leaf as an excellent star player in the Omen role, and then building around that as time goes on, if they can begin to make better decisions outside of the game in terms of managing the team and the roster. But for now, I mean,
where are they placed
they've got a lot of room. They got a lot of growing to do.
Yeah,
I don't even think I would put them top. They wouldn't even be top 10 for me for sure.
I think they'd be top 15, maybe.
I mean, look
top
at the
20.
I mean, listen, they're definitely not an 8. They're definitely not above Gen.G.
No,
they're also not above XSET.
No,
they're not above NRG.
No,
they're not above.
I don't even think I put them. They're definitely not above.
I don't think you put them above version 1. I don't know who Cosmic Divide are, but they might be ahead of them. I have no idea. But they were playing. I mean, actually, could you click on the Cloud9 roster again, Kurt? Because they're playing in an NSG tournament. I don't know if it's on here. Yeah, they lost to BBG. But click on that and go to the tournament bracket, please. Because this is the 10K going on right now. Is it just over? Did they just forfeit out of the finals?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess so. They just made the finals and forfeited out. I don't know.
They put out a reason for it. I can't remember what it was. There was some sort of Relics addressed it, and I can't remember what the here. Let me go a quick tweet.
Our investigative team is doing the deep dive onto this.
Let me head to the streets. 1 sec. Let me head to the streets.
Got anything more you'd love to say?
No, I really, really, really feel like since the beginning of this podcast 1 year ago, we've been in a permanent state of mauled about C9.
No, we have been. Yeah, we really have been.
Doesn't get any better. I mean, it doesn't get any better. They're at their worst position they've ever been at in comparison to the scene, and I really do. I mean, I wish them the best, and I feel really bad for Leaf and Poise. Especially, but I think
I feel bad for all the players in a way. They've been through. I mean, they've been through several roster moves.
Yeah.
Some of not their own volition.
Yes.
And they've had to work through multiple IGL changes. Players who aren't typically in-game leaders having to try and step up to the plate, which is not easy.
No.
And that's why that pattern, I've seen it, I said this on the show 78 times, and I'm going to say it again, but that pattern of, this guy will just in-game lead, it's fine.
Yeah,
it
never
works. It always lasts a month, and then that guy isn't actually an in-game leader, and that's not their fault. Not everyone is an in-game leader. And then someone else tries to do it, and it never works. It always happens, never works.
They're like a much worse TSM.
I couldn't find the info, by the way, for why they forfeited. I know it's out there. I know it's floating about in the Milky Way. Can't find it. Can't find it. Don't know where it's at. Right. It's out there somewhere.
Right.
Well, never mind. Oh, great lower third god, provide us our next meal, wise deity.
I feel exceptionally high today in my portrait box.
What do you mean? Did you?
Is it just me?
Well, are you high?
Do I just seem no? Like not me physically being the high, as in like my box in the juxtaposition to everyone else seems higher.
It's because Wyatt's chair is very low.
It's because my chair is just.
Look, I feel like I'm floating.
You can make it go higher.
It's because I've regressed.
You become more goblin-esque.
Yeah,
it's just I don't know. Maybe it's just the negative space because every time we go to the wide angle,
his chair is lower.
Yeah, my chair is really low. Do I want to change it though? No.
Okay.
Well, I'm just gonna stay down here.
After I just prayed to the lower third god and they provided us with sustenance, you two ignored it. So you will both be smited at some point in the future. And in the meantime, we have our first portion of the news about more and more teams signing women's teams in VALORANT, starting with a team that already had a very successful, the most successful women's team, Cloud9 White, signing Keiti, a player who bopped for them in, I think, their most recent tournament showing, although I might have missed one in between. But Keiti was playing a lot of op, playing Jett predominantly, and pounded. And looked really, really good doing it.
Keiti is very talented. Has been very talented for a while. Was excellent in CS. She has all of the qualities of like the prototype of the upcoming player. Just the ability to frag, the excellent intuition for the game. I think this was definitely a good move for them. They are now working in that odd space of 6 people on the roster. So we'll see how that ends up. Because it has seemed like due to non-game related reasons that their typical Jett player who is Jazzy has had to step away from playing a lot of tournaments.
I think it's just school, isn't it?
Yeah, just school, because I think she's pretty young.
Yeah.
So they've had Keiti starting as a Jett for a while. I mean, Keiti is just mega talented. I'm really happy that she got a spot on this team. She's also a really good streamer. If you like watching Twitch streams on Twitch television, I'm just really happy for her. I'm also just biased because whenever I see people from Ascent succeed, it makes me happy. But
she was on Ascent?
Yeah, she was for a bit. But she's just mega talented.
Biased Barry over here, huh? A little bit of a biased Barry, but that's fine.
Oh, she just killed Alexander in this CS clip. little spot on that one, but
that was pretty clean. Yeah, I think that we just had a rant about 6-man rosters, but I don't think it applies here because there's a genuine reason, which is that Jazzy has school, and as far as I'm aware, school hasn't stopped yet, so that will continue to be an issue.
Are you asking like the process of like school itself, like as an institution, school has not ended? Like they're just gonna, it's just not
education
yet. In the future, maybe we'll be done with education for the human race. We'll be done. Not yet.
Education prevails. Yeah, there's a genuine reason behind why this 6-man roster would be a thing, and maybe there'll be some kind of conflict when it gets to the end and Jazzy becomes available again full time, or if she chooses to commit full time to playing Valorant. But in the meantime, that seems like a good move for Cloud9 White to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, this helps them to realize their potential. feels like for the longest time they've been on the cusp of like really making a deep run in one of these tournaments. So we will have to see. We'll have to see come Challengers 1, Masters 2.
That is even assuming that they continue to participate in VCT, or if they instead choose to... I mean, I'm not even sure that you have to choose one over the other, actually, but the whole Game Changers initiative has yet to be launched, I think, in North America, and you would imagine that if they chose to participate in that, and again, I don't know what the rules are, I don't know whether you have to choose one over the other, but you'd imagine they would be the heavy favorites to win a Game Changers kind of event. So even with other teams looking to pick up other women rosters, they've been at the top by a long way from the other full women's tournaments that I've seen. So, yeah,
they're definitely the I don't know. It's like they're like the what everyone I think is trying to maybe mold their rosters after. So they're talented. They have good personalities on the team. So you can see why. They're sort of like driving, like they're creating this path that a lot of people want to follow. Yeah, which is a cool thing.
Cloud9 have done very well with their women's team.
Yeah,
that's, I mean, for all of their problems as a organization in Valorant, that has not been one of them. They have done very well there. But yeah, I wanted to talk about a little bit the wider topic of more and more women's teams getting signed in Valorant as well, or at least being rumored to being signed as well, because there was releases or leaks about TSM looking for an all-women's roster too.
Yeah.
So it really seems like there's been a push in the scene recently for that to become a thing.
Yeah. So there was announced in the past week, Moon Raccoons have reformed with a women's team, which is very cool. Everybody loves the Moon Raccoons. Yeah. And then CLG also announced they'll be having a team, which is no big surprise. They've had a women's team in CS for the longest of times. So
was that the best women's team in CS, CLG Red?
I can't remember. I can't remember. I mean, they were definitely one of the best. I can't remember 100%. So that's no surprise really that they would be entering into the scene in this way. And CLG just in general have been rumored to enter into Valorant for a minute now. So yeah, I mean, very cool. I mean, it seems like the whole announcement of the Game Changers and that tournament circuit and everything is doing what it's meant to do. And also, all these moves allude to maybe even, further plans down the line, something greater. In a way, sort of reminiscent of, months ago before First Strike, when orgs were like, I remember NRG were like, well, we're going to be patient, we're going to bide our time and really feel out the landscape, see what the environment is, and then a week later they just get a team. Like this, I do wonder if, even aside from the Game Changers, maybe, there might be more down the line. Even more incentivization for these teams to be signed, which is good.
This is exactly what it screams of to me, is that, all of these orgs all just independently decided to sign all women's teams? Or maybe they have a direct line to Riot, and Riot are heavily pushing it because they're adding incentives for some reason, or they are very aware of like the marketing push that they're going to do for Game Changers, and they value it as a huge opportunity, or whatever the case may be. There's some bandwagoning that always goes on with organizations, but there's normally, when you see a bunch of orgs doing the same shit at once, it's because they've all received some notification that there's a good reason to do so. And whatever the incentive may be from Riot, be that financial or be it marketing or be it something, there's some reason that Riot are pushing this mega heavily. I mean, sorry, I know the reason Riot are pushing it, but there's some reason that the teams have decided to choose this time to do it. And it's probably as a direct result of Riot pushing it because they want to help the women's scene flourish.
Yeah, orgs are a lot like trees, when the weather changes, they all start sprouting, they all start blossoming, everything happens at the same time. They get the same signals. I mean, who actually knows what that could mean, right? It could just mean everyone is interested in Valorant, like as a scene moving forward. It could be that there actually are maybe some hidden incentives or like directions that they're going to be taking with the scene, right? Where it's really incentivizing them. Like it could just be, Valorant's a really cool game. Other teams are all, there's been like a lot of interest for an NA. There's clearly going to be some push for like women's tournaments. So why not get like a women's squad? So who knows exactly what direction that is, if it's more of like a targeted push or just general overall excitement of like this direction, right? It's hard to really nail down.
All things, honestly. I think it's
All
probably all of them. All of the things we've discussed are all relevant factors, to be honest.
I also think though that the commitment level is very high, because when I think that when you invest in, you are saying that we are going to support women, we're going to have a women's team under this organization. That is a good PR move to do that. If you're thinking purely from the like cynical point of view of an org, right? If you think that that is good PR marketing, that you're going to get your name out there a lot, that you even want to help the women's side of gaming, that's all good shit. If at some point the viewership doesn't work out, or the incentives dry up, or whatever, and you decide it's no longer financially viable, it still becomes incredibly bad PR to drop these kind of teams, even if they're not making a decent return, because it's more than just monetary. You are making an investment into the development of women in gaming. That's what you're doing by committing to this. That's a lot. That is a fucking long-term commitment. And that's where I think that the orgs must know something else on the inside, or must be being pushed by Riot, because otherwise it is risky. Because if you allocate funds towards this and you either pay them a lot less because you're expecting the viewership to be a lot less, that can be a PR disaster. If you are rescinding your support for your women's side of your division, that can be a disaster, even though it might be the financially correct thing to do for the organization at the time. So there's a lot of commitment involved. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, but I think that means to me that there's a heavy push coming from Riot to make sure that these orgs should be compensated, at least in terms of the marketing drive associated with adding on almost double the costs in having two teams under their
especially off the backs that their existing costs are generally not even covered. Like most, full male squads, for your traditional esports like League, CS, even Valorant right now are not making anyone money. It's all a giant speculative investment of like, okay, we're trying to get returns later on down the line. So adding a second squad is essentially doubling your cost in a system that already does not have necessarily very firm returns. So,
which is why I'm saying, I'm not saying that it's
why
a
you're
bad
saying all
investment,
those other things.
But it indicates to me that this is going to be a long-term thing that Riot are very heavily pushing. Because if Riot weren't very heavily pushing it, I think it would be the same as most other esports, where the financial incentives don't tend to line up. But with the other stuff that Riot's going for, this seems to be the direction that they're helping orgs go towards. That is a positive thing as long as it works out in the long term.
I mean, it's exciting for both women in gaming and also the game in general, because you're also taking the initiative to now push forward to get more demographic share of more women viewers on top of players. And like, it's exciting for the game as a whole, not just specifically with women in gaming, because it allows to bring in people that haven't been as watching as much and haven't been as interested in esports, and make them more invested, and to create a space that they're going to be more interested and involved in as well, which is good for the game as a whole.
The game should be for everyone. And also, I mean, it's a good thing that these teams are being created. And I do hope that this is something for, I mean, as to what you were saying, that this needs to be something committed and something for the long term. And I'm glad that that's the direction that these things are heading in, because these long-standing organizations and a lot of the people that have existed in this gaming space existed for a long time in a space that didn't support women. So it is important that be rectified with commitment now. That that lack of, over the last, I mean, however, God knows how long.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years.
I mean, that has to be manually rectified by real commitment from a lot of people in gaming and a lot of the companies that are putting money behind these people. So this is all positive, all good, and needs to happen.
I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm hyped to see what kind of investment they put behind Game Changers and other stuff that's involved in the scene. All right. Oh, lower third god.
What do we
Move us along.
It's Wyatt's weekly award.
This ball is crushed. Man, what a shot.
just a poster tube. This week's weekly award.
What a shot.
This week's weekly award. It goes to a man who might have deserved it last week, all right? I heard the pleas and the cries of the people. This week's award goes to Coach Trippy. A well-deserved award to Coach Trippy. It was hard last week because the Baby Bay Coach Trippy, I mean, they're both important cogs in the new FaZe machine. But Trippy definitely, he deserves all of the credit that I've seen him get over these past couple weeks for one of the most absurd turnarounds of a team I have witnessed in all my years of watching esports, I guess. I mean, this shit's ridiculous.
It is.
It is ridiculous. I mean, if you just want, to go through. Also, Trippy is he's funny. Really funny.
He is quite funny.
I mean, if you want to go through his Twitter, you'll see all types of stuff. I love seeing what he posts. He posted his back the other day. My man's jacked because fucking course he is, man. Look at his back.
God, that is ridiculous.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. He's finding the balance.
Lats.
Look at his lats. Valorant grind, gym grind. He's finding the balance. Keep going, Kurt. I mean, he's got more. He's just got bangers after bangers. I love I don't know if you can find it, but the original video of him in his car when he got signed to FaZe, and he's just jamming in his car. Oh, he's got some Hugo Boss drip on up there. I mean, it's out of control. Coach Drippy.
I like how Trippy has turned into like a Gabe Newell-esque figure within the Valorant community where like he'll post in a chat and everyone's like, hey, it's Trippy, guys. Like, everyone is Trippy. And like, he's got like the FaZe icon. Everyone thinks it's like fake Trippy. Like every time, like everyone's like, this guy's not real. It can't be Trippy. Can't be him. Like, and then he's like, no, it's me, guys. It really is. And everyone just like loses their mind.
But yeah, I mean, the man just deserves an insane amount of credit.
Coach Drippy.
Really
I do love the Drippy Trippy. I think that's so fun. What is this? Us running away with your guns after we eco you. God, it's just elite.
I mean, yeah, but again, I've seen him get so much credit this week, and he definitely deserves it. And I suppose I'm just adding on to that, really, because I can't. I mean, it's just an unreal turnaround from FaZe, and he deserves a lot of credit for being able to not only accurately deduce the issues with FaZe, but also get the team to actually change to what he thinks will work for them. And then for all of that to realize its potential in FaZe going from being like, I don't know, I guess maybe at the end of the top 10.
Yeah, they were probably like 10.
You never would have thought they could have made it this far in a tournament like this. I mean, it didn't look like this could be a reality for them.
No. They look like they had upset potential.
It is
no
one of the
chance.
most insane stories in Valorant so far, genuinely.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So he just deserves an immense amount of credit. That is it. That's the weekly award.
Dude, absolute worthy winner of the Wyatt's Weekly Award. Is it fair to say that if Sentinels comes out and just bops FaZe, that it could be a certain TenZ? Because I think TenZ is got to be sat there at home right now, and he's watching the Weekly Award being given out, and he's like, I just came in, motherfucker. I just came in to a team, and I had not practiced a single time, and I'm dropping 30 bombs in their game.
That's such a I mean, that's like you're picking like the best player in A is like, will the best player in A win an award?
I
mean, what's it gonna take for TenZ to get that award next week?
He could get it next week.
Yeah.
I mean, Sentinels are gonna have to do pretty well though.
Yeah. I think that's probably the primary motivation.
I can't listen. I can't give FaZe an award 3 weeks in a row, right? Like, unless there's a world where if they win and Corey continues to pop off, and
Marv,
I'm telling you,
played really well
Marv is playing really well, but I don't think Corey's getting enough credit for how critical he is to this FaZe iteration. Well, he could be working his way in there for the FaZe fucking 3-peat award.
But
it depends on the results, and it depends on how much. It depends on how much, because the other person I had in mind for this week was Shadow, because his Sky was just.
Yeah.
I was getting excited watching his Sky, and depending on what happens with FPX, Shadow is definitely in the running. I think too.
Okay.
So we'll see. There's a lot of. I mean, the next
Gamelanders
week,
Furia as well.
Yeah, listen, big award coming up next week. All the regions conclude the first Masters.
The greatest player from all of the regions.
Yeah. Woo. That's a hot tasty award.
Ooh,
so
that is a little cheeky one. Also, subscribe to our channel. I've noticed that our subscribership is growing, yes, but our viewership is growing faster. Do you know what that means? That means that there are more and more people watching who aren't yet subscribed.
That's horrific.
That's crazy, isn't it?
That's terrible.
It really is. We need you to be subscribed.
This sale is bad. This sale is bad. This is not a good sell so far. It's
killing the vibe.
Yeah, Avast. Yes, you're killing it with cynicism. Stop it. Listen, you need to be subscribed to this channel, otherwise you won't catch such fantastic moments as our live co-streams. Yep. They literally won't pop up for you because YouTube tries to bury all of its live viewership under just a mound of VOD content. So unless you subbed, you'll never see us be live. But you can also catch the playlists if you missed any.
Importantly, though, you have a job to do, viewers. And that's to leave a comment.
Oh, yeah. What should the comment be?
I think the comment should be, who do you think should win the award next
week? Yeah.
Because this next week award is it might be the biggest award yet. I mean, this is the biggest tournament in all regions coming to conclusion. Yeah. So it's going to go to the player who I feel is the MVP of Masters 1, period.
That's a tough conversation. I feel like that's a whole topic.
That honestly might be a topic after.
Yeah, that's a whole topic.
It probably should be, actually.
We could do a whole topic after the Wyatt Weekly Award next week.
Very rare. That's never happened before.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it has. It happened last week.
Oh.
No, actually, no, it didn't.
No, it
because
didn't.
we didn't.
No, we did it before. We did it before.
Yeah, we did it before. But yeah, that does it for this episode, I think. Tune in next week. I've got a hair in my mouth, and it's really uncomfortable. Tune in next week.
Good night.
And we'll be discussing the wrapping of all of Masters. And if you want to watch the live co-stream, sub to us, and you will find it live during NA Masters. Bye.